Okay, I would like to reconvene this Washington Unified School District Regular Board of Education meeting for June 8th, 2017. And let's do the Pledge of Allegiance. Kim Harrison, will you lead us in the pledge, please?
One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, let the record reflect that all board trustees are present. And announcement of actions taken in closed session. We had E1, Government Code Section 54954.8, real property negotiations. Direction was given. We had E2, Government Code Section 54957.6, conference with labor negotiators, WTA, CSEA. We will be going back into closed session for that item. And we had E3, Government Code Section 54957, public employee discipline dismissal release. Information was received. Okay, that takes us to the approval of the agenda. Sure.
Hello. I'm requesting that consent item N11 be pulled.
Okay. Pulled to vote on separately?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So we'll move that to action item. Okay, so can I have an approval of the agenda with that change?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, the motion was made by Board Vice President Pizzotti, seconded by Board Trustee Akala, and all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And I too vote aye. So that takes us to communications and celebrations. We have J1, the recognition of River City High School Student Athlete Scholarship. And do we have Sam Moisich here? Principal of River City.
Thank you, Ms. President Kirby-Gonzalez. Thank you, board members. I also, since we don't have a student report tonight, I wanted to mention that we did have our graduation last Thursday, and I wanted to thank each of you for your participation in that event. All the feedback we got was that it was a really great event, and hopefully our seniors are going to have a great time in the future. I do have some with me tonight, actually, so we can keep celebrating. So first off, I'd like to have my student athlete, Tyson Leaks, come up here. He's a 12th grader. So this is Tyson Leak. Basically he's a great athlete and a great kid. We want to celebrate him. He's received an athletic scholarship to George Fox University in Newberg, Oregon. So he's going a little further away from home, but I know he's going to be a big success over there, and we're all very proud of him. All of us in the district recognize the dedication and perseverance it requires academically and athletically to obtain a scholarship to a college or university. So he's put quite a bit of effort here. His family's here to join us in this celebration tonight. So our superintendent is not here with us, Tyson, but she started this wonderful tradition of awarding our student athletes a sweatshirt from their new university. I see you're wearing the shirt proudly already. So Superintendent Luna has given you this nice sweatshirt from George Fox University. So I think, Tyson, we're going to do a little photo opportunity right now. So the board members are going to join you right now. We're going to take a photo, and I think Dr. Parsons will take a picture.
Mr. Go down or stand? Go down?
Okay. I'll stand in front. Wherever he's going to stand. It's weird, right? Don't tell him what we're going to do. Always me, right? Or you come over.
Thank you.
That's a nice position.
Chair was stuck.
We also have J2, which is recognition of River City High School Schools USA Award recipients.
Thank you. So you're very familiar with Skills USA at this point because they've been up here before winning awards. And tonight I have a couple of my students and their teacher here with us. Skills USA improves the quality of America's skilled workforce through a structured program of citizenship, leadership, and employability, technical and professional skills training. Skills USA enhances the lives and careers of students, instructors, and industry representatives as they strive to be champions at work. So the 2016-17 Region 4 Leadership and Skills Conference was held on Saturday, February 4th, 2017 at UTI, Sacramento. Region 4 serves Siskiyou, Modoc, Trinity, Shasta, Lassen, Tehama, Plumas, Glen, Butte, Sierra, Yuba, Colusa, Sutter, Nevada, Placer, Yolo, Sacramento, El Dorado, and Amador counties. I probably could have said Northern California. That would have probably been better, but here we go. So Washington Unified teacher Sadiqa Yusufi and the River City Engineering and Science Academy students took part in the electronics competition. 8 students from River City High School advanced to the state level. So I want to congratulate the following medalists for placing in this prestigious competition. Gold medal was Darren Salmos, who's not here with us tonight, but I have 2 outstanding people with me tonight. I have their, first of all, teacher Sadiqa Yusufi. Would you please join me up here, Sadiqa? I have silver medal winner Salman Malaksai. And bronze medal winner Jagjit Singh. Ms. Yusufi, this is in recognition of your outstanding contribution to this competition and all the work you do for our students.
Thank you.
And I also have certificates for Salman Malaksai and Jagjit Singh.
All right.
Photo op.
Before the photo op, what athletic sport was the scholarship for?
Thank you, Ms. Cruz.
Forgot.
This was primarily for football. That's your sport, right, Tyson? He does participate in track and field too, though. But this was for football.
I kind of figured that, like a football.
This is for him also. You can take that.
Okay. I just want to say thank you to all the board members for supporting our program, and also Mr. Moisich for always being our backbone for whatever we want to do for the competitions and stuff. So thank you very much.
Okay, a big congratulations again, and thank you for being here and for your families to be here also on this summer vacation, and Ms. Yusufi for coming back and joining us. Thank you so much. What an honor to celebrate you tonight. Okay. Sorry, thank you. So that takes us to association reports. We have WTA.
Good evening. I had a very fascinating morning. I went to the Office of Government Financial Strategies to observe the sale of our second batch of Measure V bonds. Turned out to be a 3-hour lecture seminar by Lori Ranieri on municipal bonds. Quite fascinating. Things went very well this morning, but I don't want to steal the thunder from Scott or Lori Ranieri when they give the report to you later this year. Just say that it was a good day. Other than that, I'm trying to get into summer mode right now, and hopefully, along with many of my colleagues, I'm trying to take a little break before we get into planning for next year. And other than that, that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you, and happy summer, Don Stoffer. We also have our CSEA report, and Ray Tilbert.
Good evening, everyone. I just would like to say significant progress has been made over the communication and morale building over this past school year. Significant progress has been made. It's been a pleasure working with the Scott Landsberger and Mike Reed and you all. It's been a good school year. We made it. It's over, and so we look forward to building on for the next school year. Thank you.
Great, thank you, and happy summer to you as well. Okay, that takes us to our board comments. We have Board Trustee Wong.
Thank you. So after the last board meeting, I was able to have my CSA Shadow Day with Jenny Yarbrough from Stonegate Elementary, and she is the school secretary, and I was just amazed at what they do every single day. It happened to be field day, so a lot was going on in terms of like people forgetting their towels and everything, and so I was able to kind of shadow her, and I'm just, again, I think that every day our classified staff do the work that helps kind of hold the school together, right, in many ways. So really impressed with the fact that like every 5 seconds there was a new question, a different question about timesheets, or like my book is being turned in, or I'm sick, and so she was able to manage it all. And despite that there was this kind of field day, she said, go out, Jackie, go out and go participate in field day. I said, no, Jenny, that you're actually, if you're here, I'm here with you. Like, you know, as everybody else is outside having fun with the students, laughing at the AP being dunked in the dunk tank, that I'm here with you as I should be, as any shadowing any classified staff. So really, really impressed with kind of the level of patience and organization that our you know, front desk staff have. So really appreciated that. Outside of that, it was my first graduation season. I know that you all have been through this before, and it was just so moving to be at all of the graduations at Yola High School, where the first time they had the I'm going to mess this up, transition adult living program, which is so near and dear to my heart in terms of the education that the students with developmental disabilities have gone through, and we've gotten awards in the past for that, so that was really moving, as well as the keynote of Yola High School. Kind of, again, we've tweeted out her story. And so just really moved, as well as the River City High School graduation. Again, I thought I would, my feet would be a little bit sore, but I think it was really great seeing the students that I knew, hugging them, and they're like, Jack, you almost cried. Yeah, I almost cried because you're a senior and I can't believe that, right? Or, you know, kind of doing a little jig before, you know, just kind of seeing their faces. I was the first person to greet them, and seeing just kind of their faces like, oh my gosh, this is it. I'm about to be done and enter kind of this new phase in life. So I was feeling so blessed to be part of this. So thank you for all that. Thank you for the community and trusting me to be part of this board, because this is, you know, why we do what we do, right? And so thank you for that. So that's my report.
Thank you. Board Trustee Alcala.
Oh, thank you. I think graduations are everyone's favorite time of the year. It's so wonderful seeing all our students going out, you know, ready to meet the future. And it's a wonderful validation knowing that we here at WUSD have provided them with a very strong foundation. I think that makes us all feel really proud and so hopeful for the future. Also, I just wanted to say, President Kirby Gonzalez, I have received so many compliments on your speech. It was very inspirational. I've had people come up to me at my church and a few folks over at Safeway and telling me, hey, that was a great speech she gave, because it really asked our young people, you know, to apply the knowledge that they've received to make prudent choices and to become civically engaged. And that's something very important for this new generation, you know, to be involved. So I just wanted to let you know I've received a lot of compliments. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Sure. Board Trustee Cruz.
I, too, enjoy this time of year, and all the graduations are really special, but I truly enjoy YOLO's graduation at the Crest Theater. I know a lot of us have a story, but the stories that come out of some of the YOLO High students and the adult ed were just moving. You might have saw some of them on the news. And it's just a great time of year. I mean, I know Board Member Wong and I had a great time up there on stage. You may have noticed, may not have noticed, but we did change a little bit, and the board members didn't hand out diplomas. I was one of the supported that the principal should hand the students their diploma. It's that school's students. I mean, we're policy, procedure, and when I graduated from River City, my principal gave me, my diploma. So I'm sure a lot of parents would appreciate not these faces being in the photos, but a familiar face this year. So that was something new, and I think everybody really enjoyed it. Really terrifying for the kids, as Board Member Wong said. As we stood up there, they were all fun and games, and then they got to us, and one of them even looked like they were going to faint. So it's scary, but it was fun. So it's a happy time of year. Also, I just want to make sure everybody stays safe this summer. And as I said earlier, I know it's a time for summer and break, but there's a lot of good programs going on in West Sacramento. You can learn 12 months a year. I know the kids would like a break, and the parents too, but look forward to the summer. And for those of you that have followed my family story, next Wednesday night at 7 o'clock, the mayor will be awarding a proclamation to my son for his Barcelona trip. So if you want to come out and support him, but I know it's 7 o'clock at night, and I know we all have other things to do, but it's another way to support one of our students. So I wish you all a safe summer. We will still be here, staff will still be here, but have a safe and enjoyable summer.
Thank you. Board Vice President Pizzotti.
Thank you. I too went to graduation, and I thought it was so amazing. One of the things that kind of touched me the most about the graduation at River City at Raleigh Field was seeing all the kids that spoke different languages come up and say, "Congratulations, class of 2017," in their native languages. How many different languages came out and spoke that? And it really reminded me of something that you said in your speech, is that, our diversity gives us strength, and it gives us a sense of community. And I was really touched by that. I was like, this is exactly why West Sac is so wonderful. Yeah, that was just awesome. And then getting to go attend West Sac Early College Prep's graduation was it was really neat in and of itself, because there was only 12 graduates in this class, but it was such a wonderful, intimate little affair. And you got to see at Bright Cafe, where in such a nice, intimate little setting, you got to see everybody's parents, and you could hear them all cheering and yelling when somebody's name got called, and you could actually see their faces. It was so personal and so touching. So I really did appreciate that. Unfortunately, I didn't get to attend the YOLO graduation, but I did, because that was scheduled on the same day as the State of the City. So I drew the short straw and went to the State of the City. No, I'm kidding. I went to the State of the City as a representative of the district. And just a little update on what was talked about. So this is the 30th year that the city has been in existence as a city. And it was really quite impressive to see where we came from, where we are, and where we're going in the future. And that was basically the theme for the State of the City address. And, we came from this, small little town with little chunks that have been built up over the years, but to see it grow to this kind of emerging business friendly area where everybody is looking to as innovation and how to do things right, to where we're going in the future and investing in our future to bring more business in by investing in our students. And that's kind of when we got the real structural layout of the Kids Home Run program, which is, first you have high-quality preschools here in West Sacramento, and then you go from having a kid enrolled in a high-quality preschool here in West Sacramento to being enrolled in one of our Washington Unified schools. They get a $50 savings account that the city will match when you put money in. And then it goes to our high school students. They get an internship, for qualified high school students to work with the city or some of the city's business partners, which is really, I think that gives us a wonderful advantage for all of our kids, because we now have a partnership with the city, and we're teaching our kids soft skills that, aren't necessarily grasped right away when you get out of high school. So you're starting to get that working in an office environment or, working in a business environment where you have to show up on time, you have to be dressed appropriately, you have to, do things in a way that's going to be appropriate for, for a business climate. And then finally, the last part of the program is the free tuition for West Sacramento resident students that are graduating from River City High School. This is, this is outstanding. There's certain facets of this program in a lot of different cities, but there is no program like this where every facet is all in a combination together. So we are the only city that has that in the entire country. I think that is something that we can be proud of as a school district, to partner with the city on this. So I just think it was really moving and really beneficial, and I think we're going in the right direction. That's it.
Okay. Hopefully I make it through this meeting. I apologize. I'm not sick like many of us have been most of this year, but I have terrible allergies. So if I have to excuse myself, I apologize. So for the Classified Employees Week, I had a great time too. I was with Shane, I might pronounce his last name wrong, Rugnau. And we were at Southport, and we were out working that blacktop, making sure all the kids were safe and well taken care of out there. And he really kind of touched on what we know is so important, and that is relationships, because all the kids kept coming up to him to give him hugs and high fives, including his own son that goes there too. And so that was pretty special, and just to see how important those relationships are. And then when we're on the ground in that capacity, different than just going on a tour or seeing the school, we can really see firsthand what are some of the successes and then some of the challenges too. And one of them is there, which was pretty evident, was the lack of space for like a basketball hoops or something, so that when the older kids are all out there, they were having a field day, and then the PE class couldn't go and use the fields. And so things like that are important for us to kind of see firsthand, to know what logistics that people are dealing with. And so a couple other things came up like that I thought were really important. And what's nice is when we're with the employees, I feel like every time I've done this, I hear, here are the challenges and here's the solution every single time. And so it was really nice to have that, and I appreciated being there. And our 2x2 meeting has been moved, so it was going to be this month, but it was been postponed. And my daughter said, as we talk about summer and graduations and coming to a close, my kindergartner, or now to be first grader, told me this morning, she said, "Mom, why can't school be 1,000 days? Because I don't want to have summer vacation and just be home with you. So I think a lot of our children sometimes feel this way. As fun as summer is and as exciting as it is to be with us, they miss their friends too. They have this room full of kids that they know care about them and that they care about too. A teacher that's there to nurture them, and they miss it. And so I thought that was pretty sweet. We have a lot of fun plans this summer, but it was just sweet to hear that from my own child, how much that she really does just enjoy being at school and love being there. And then I think the news, as we talked about our graduations and all the great things that are happening this time of year, I think we had 3 different news stories, I remember, in one night that we were on. It's hard to even keep up with all of the great things that are happening here. So thank you to our teachers, thank you to our staff, thank you to everyone just for making this a really good year for our kids, and a year where we can get to the end and really celebrate all of the hard work that everyone's done. So thank you for that, and happy summer to the folks that are lucky enough to have one. I know some of our employees are just going to keep working, and we appreciate them for that. Okay, and we don't have a superintendent update tonight because our superintendent is taking a well-deserved little break, and her son is actually getting married, and so we are thinking good thoughts of her this weekend as she takes some time for herself. So that takes us to public comments, of which we have none. And so we have the consent agenda, and as a reminder, N11 has been pulled from the consent agenda. So can I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Okay, can I have a second? Second. Okay, so the motion was made by Board Vice President Pizzotti. It was seconded by Board Trustee Wong. All those in favor?
Aye.
And I too vote aye. Thank you.
So,
Yes.
I just want to take a moment and introduce a couple new members of our leadership team that came here this evening to say hello and be introduced to the board. The first is Tyrone Armstrong. So Tyrone, if you could stand up. He's our new operations supervisor. He'll be working alongside our custodial staff and supporting them in the work that they do each day. And so thank you, Tyrone. We're happy to have you on board. Also want to introduce Stuart Bushnell. He is our new assistant principal of Southport K-8 school. So Stuart is an experienced administrator that will be working alongside Matt Ainsworth. Golly, I don't know why his name went out of my head, but it did. He'll be working alongside Matt and the staff there at the school to run a great program and continue to do great things at Southport. So thank you both for being here this evening, and welcome aboard. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, and congratulations. Okay, that takes us then to our public hearing 01, and that is public hearing for the 2017-2018 Local Control Accountability Plan and Annual Update Draft. And I know Gwen Dillinger we have here, which is our Director of Planning, Accountability, and Compensationary Education. Thank you. Amber Lee, Assistant Superintendent.
Good evening, President Kirby Gonzalez, Board of Trustees, Cabinet, and community members. It is my great pleasure to present, along with my esteemed colleagues, Dr. Parsons, Mike Reed, and Gwen Dillinger. I always struggle with that. Gwen is ill and has been really sick this week and is struggling, so we are going to make a team effort and help her out tonight. So without any further ado, our draft of our Local Control Accountability Plan. I got a little excited there. So what is the LCAP? The LCAP is a plan to ensure academic achievement and progress. It's about making sure that all of our students, not just some, but that all of our students are college and career ready. It's a plan to ensure that our dollars align to the students' needs, to ensure their academic progress, their well-being, their support, and their college and career readiness. You've seen this graphic before, but I just want to ground us in what the LCAP is really all about. It's about ensuring not just equality, but true equity. In equality, everyone receives the same thing. The base funding brings equality, but supplemental funding brings equity. Everybody does not need the same thing in the same way at the same time. And equity, true equity, is really about receiving what our students need when they need it. The LCAP was really designed to principally direct supplemental and concentration funds to some of our most neediest subgroups, our English learners, our low-income students, and our foster youth. And you will see throughout the plan that we've addressed specific goals and actions to help ensure that these students, who sometimes come with different challenges, get the support that they need. The local control accountability plan and our strategic plan, as you can see from this Venn diagram, really overlap. And the goals are the same, to ensure that our student outcomes and our community outcomes are met. And to accomplish this, we have goals with action plans to make sure that we are ensuring these goals are met. Additionally, one of the changes you'll see this year from our previous LCAP is that we took the goals and aligned it to the wording of our strategic plan. This year, for 2017-20, as you know, the LCAP is a 3-year plan. The template has been revised, and it's now much, much easier and a more readable format. In my previous districts, I was the one charged with creating the LCAP, and that first year, I still have nightmares about that format. So we're really excited to see that the State Department has improved the format. The plan includes several sections. The first section is the annual update. It's really our chance to share with the community what we've accomplished. And then areas maybe we didn't accomplish, but explain like why, because sometimes things just don't get accomplished. For example, in my previous district, we had a goal about the Casey. Well, the Casey is no longer in existence, so that would be a goal that we can no longer meet. Stakeholder engagement. Throughout the document, you'll see all the different ways that the team has engaged with parents, community members, and staff members to get their input. And then, of course, there's the goals and actions for 17-18, and then ongoing, and then the budget summary. And after our presentation, my other esteemed colleague, Scott Landsberger, will present budget information.
All right, so I just want to share with you what we've accomplished since 2014. So I'm just going to go through things that you're very familiar with because they are already in play here inside the district. So first is items that have been put into place addressing the state priority that we implement the state standards for student achievement. So we have put into place teachers on special assignment who are supporting our math program and our curriculum, working alongside of our teachers. We've also put into, and also supporting our technology pieces that we have in the district. We have program specialists that work specifically with our BITSA and or induction program, as well as curriculum and professional learning. We have an 3 English learner specialists that work out at our school sites with our students who are designated English learners, as well as a coordinator who works to support them from the district office with their direct support services or their direct services to students. The second state priority revolves around course access for students. So we know we've done a fantastic job of introducing or making sure we have visual and performing arts for our students from kindergarten through 12th grade. So we have K-5 music, art, and theater, 6-8 electives for instrumental music in the form of band, and then our 9 through 12 CTE pathway with electives. We're also making sure that we have A through G course access for all of our high school students. That is also aligned with our CTE pathways and making sure that our YOLO high school students have the same course access. We also did some work with our ability to provide access and choice. So the example of that is our dual immersion Spanish program at Elkhorn, our recognition of students through the Seal of Biliteracy, and our CTE pathways and foundations courses. The third state priority has to do with student engagement and school climate. So in this particular area, we have taken the step forward with the social workers in our school district to support our kids and families. We have outreach specialists that do very similar work and are connected and, again, out working with students and families at the school sites. as well as a foster youth specialist that works directly with the foster youth population in our district. As well as adding, we have programs that have been put into place, such as the Kevin Bracey Reach One Alliance. We heard from him in the program last week, our last board meeting. And then we have Attention to Attendance program that does a lot of work through, or supports the work in Jerry's office with student services to make sure that we're tracking closely our student attendance and making sure we're addressing issues that may come up in that area. In the support services area, we have health aides at our school sites. We have campus aides. We've added an extra campus aide to River City High School to help keep things calm there and support our students, as well as additional assistant principal support at Westfield and Yolo High School. All right, the last of the things that I'm going to share with you is the parental involvement and work that we've done in this area. So we know we have an administrator of communications and community outreach, so that's a big thrust in that area. That's the work that Yorgos does. And with Parent Institute, or PK, as it's called, Parent Institute for Quality Education, to support our parents and helping them help their kids. Community forums, adult education, and our homeschool liaisons all fall in this area of things that we've done since 2014 to address the goals of LCAP.
One of the changes I think I'm most excited about with our state testing is the new data dashboard. Gwen presented earlier in the year about our new data dashboard, and what's exciting for me is that this new system really honors not only where you're at status-wise, like how are you performing in ensuring that your students are college and career ready, but also looking at progress, at change. Are you continuing to improve? So our annual update for Goal 1, 21st Century Skills, where are we at in ensuring that our students are college and career ready? Now, this data is a year old. We've just completed our spring administration of the Smarter Balance assessment, and data is coming in. We will be updating you later on in the summer with our results from 2017. So this is data that is a year old. In language arts, again, grades 3 through 8 and 11 are the only grade levels tested. We grew 7.1 points. However, we are in yellow, which you can see the color coding system. Blue is best, green is good. Yellow is below. And so what that means is we're 21 points below a level 3, which level 3 means meets standards. In math, we grew 6.4 points. However, we were still 46.7 points below. So that's why we're a yellow versus a red. So while we are still below where we need to be, there was growth and there was improvement. And that's what we're always striving to do, is to continuously grow and improve. For our English learner progress, and I just want to point out that this is a little bit confusing or misleading the way the state is reporting it. This is not reporting progress that our English learners are making on the Smarter Balanced assessment. It's progress towards reclassification and progress towards acquiring language proficiency, currently as it's measured on the CELT. So we grew 1.5 points, and we're at a green status, so that's good. Our AP exam passage rate is 58%, and so our goal is to increase it 10% every year until we reach 80% of students passing an AP exam that take it. College and career indicator for grade 11. So this is really exciting news that we celebrated last year. For English language arts, our 11th grade students last year grew 72.4 points. They're 17.1 points above level 3, meaning they met grade level standards for literacy. In math, we grew 67 points. However, we were still quite below the mark, 66.6 points below level 3, meaning meeting mathematical standards. Update. So according to our goals for the last LCAP, that was 2014 to 2017, California standards, Common Core standards, are fully implemented, both in language arts and math, as measured by the interim assessment blocks, master schedules, and our report cards. Over 90% of 9th grade students completed Get Focused, Stay Focused. And our instructional devices right now are currently at a ratio of 1 to 3, and I really want to right now give a shout out and a thank you to our technology department. They've been working really hard to ensure that our students have access to the technology that they need to truly help them be college and career ready. And currently, you're going to see that number improve as we are ordering more devices and getting technology into the hands of our students.
Amber, can I ask you a question real quick?
Absolutely.
So it said in your first slide that we were 21 points below in the yellow. Can you tell me what are the particular barriers to being higher? What is the rationale? Why are we, do you know why we are 21 points below?
You know, it's a really hard question to answer because I think there's a lot of factors that go into it. But now that we've completed our first year, I think that Common Core standards are relatively new. And the level of rigor that's required of these standards is at a whole different level than what we've ever experienced before. So there's definitely a need for more professional development, more training. We've already put some plans in place for next year to give our teachers the support that they need. We're looking at different systems of professional development delivery because previously, professional development, because of our sub-issue, was held after school or on Saturdays. And so certain teachers, because of their life commitments or other commitments, were either unable, or didn't attend. So you have not the same knowledge of all of our teachers. We also did not have Common Core aligned instructional materials. So last year, in this fall, we adopted math. We adopted our Go Math, and part of the reason why I really pushed on the teachers to do a mid-year adoption for ELA pilot and adoption, because we knew that our teachers deserve to have these materials and resources, and our students deserve to have Common Core aligned. So I anticipate that with professional development, new aligned instructional materials, that you will see improvement. And also, just a little plug, next Friday is the Dream Team, a group of educators that are going to be getting together to create common units of study, common assessments, so that we have equity, but also that teachers can work smarter and not harder. And we can talk about the data, we can talk about what's working, share best practices, and really leverage each other.
Well, thank you. You answered the section questions that I was going to ask, which is, so what's our plan to address that?
And we're going to get to that in a few later slides, but if you want to see it in action again next Friday in the multipurpose room, Dream Team.
I was going to wait till the end, yeah. We'll wait till the end to bombard you with all of
All
ours.
right.
Because you might answer half of them, so.
All right.
Good evening, and like Amber said, we're really excited about the new LCAP, which we'll get to in a second, because we did use the data to create plans to support our math and ELA. So the second goal is educational opportunities for our kids. First of all, what's happened over the last few years, as you know, this year we did grades TK through 12 full implementation of our new math curriculum, and the board adopted ELA curriculum in 17-18 to begin training and implementation for 17-18. Also, A through G completion rates over the last few years has been hovering around 52%. Stan and I have been meeting regularly for the new LCAP in order to create, because we both believe that is too low for students to go to college. And so that's one of the things that we're really focused on, and the board approved fuel education for blended learning, which is also going to play into supporting our kids with A through G completion rate. The AP passage rate in 15-16 was 58%. It varies on what content area. That too, we believe, could be enhanced for AP passage rate. And Stan and I have also been talking about different strategies, especially opening up AP classes for more students to enable equity, so all students have the opportunity to participate in AP classes. Student access to VAPA instruction to TK through 12th grade. We have been working on expanding our VAPA program, and as you'll see in the new LCAP, we have included that as a main line item in order to buy instruments, clean instrument, repair instruments, in order to make sure that all of our kids have access to visual and performing arts. Then CTE, as you know, with the Bright Campus, this is a little bit confusing, but 732 unduplicated students enrolled in CTE programs with an intensity of 300 plus instructional hours. They have to do a lot of hours in their CTE courses in order to complete the capstone. Out of those 732, 139 students were enrolled and completed a capstone course, which is the highest level course. As you'll see in the new LCAP, we are looking to expand that greatly to create college and career readiness for all of our kids. And 19% of those enrolled CT students completed a sequence in 15-16, which shows that it is catching on because I believe that the old vocational model has switched, but our district is starting to go, oh, this isn't about vocation, it's about college and career readiness. So we have many more students enrolling in that, as well as through our A through G. Renee Collins has put in for A through G for our CTE courses, because that's another reason that a lot of students weren't taking CTE courses is because they were not A through G aligned. So those students that wanted to go to college did not want to take that type of an elective. However, that will be changing next year and the next 2 years. And an additional 31% were enrolled in CTE courses with concentration, which means that they have taken a minimum of 2 classes towards that, but then one of the reasons they don't take higher level courses over at Bright is because we didn't have core curriculum available. So it was difficult to be at River City, go there, and then have to come back. And so a lot of students did not choose to do the capstone because they needed their higher level math or science classes.
All right, well, I asked specifically if I could talk about Goal 3. One of my beliefs as a leader of our HR department is that our job in the department is to recruit, develop, and retain quality staff, and to make sure that we have structures that allow that to continue so that folks are successful in any position that we have in the district. So this first piece, again, is the annual update, but I'm going to talk more about that and where we're headed in the next time I come up here. But just an update on some of the areas that are reflecting our work with professional learning that occurred this past year. So we had teachers who were provided or took part in learning about the English Learner Master Plan. We had over 232 teachers that were trained on this plan, which was a very productive training for them, eye-opener for them, and it should play out in their work with students in the classroom each day. We had teachers had access to the Common Core math training that was provided, most of which was done before the school year started with our new math curriculum, but continued on into the school year. And so we had many of our teachers that were able to participate in that so that they were able to better implement the tools that were provided to them. We had 48 teachers go through the Google Classroom training, and so that that's an ongoing project so that they can implement those strategies in the classroom with our students. And then you'll remember earlier in the year, we created a partnership with Edivate. That tool will help us to track, provide, and alert our teachers and staff, all staff, to professional learning opportunities that will be made available to them. We also had English language arts, mathematics, and science and social studies teachers, cadres of them evaluating our curricular frameworks. We had math teachers who received professional in-class coaching and modeling with the new Carnegie program. We had continued our work with our new teacher induction program for our first and second year teachers. And then we also, there we go. We had our wellness program, which was encouraging and challenging folks to promote exercise and nutrition so that they stay healthy and alert as staff members in our district. So let me go back, sorry. So a couple of data points with this is in this past year, we had over 80% of our teachers participate in at least one or more professional learning opportunities. And we also I want to report out that we had a certificated retention rate moving into the 16-17 school year of 90%.
Goal 4, school climate. So this goal is really about ensuring that our students have learning environments in safe, clean facilities and that are welcoming and bully-free. So annual update. Under this goal, what we've accomplished. So our student suspension rates have declined 4.4% and reflect a green on our data dashboard. Expulsion rates remain at less than 10 students expelled per year, that's district-wide, and in 17-18, only 1 student was expelled. Our school facilities were rated in good repair, as evidenced by the facility inspection tool. Additionally, our campus has also received an external review by Yolo County Office of Education and also received a good review. Graduation rate. The dashboard shows that all subgroups, with the exception of our African American students, either maintained or increased their graduation rates. And 94.1% of our students graduated with a 1.4% increase. School attendance rates averaged 95.64%, and our Healthy Kids survey showed that 58% of students felt safe or very safe at school. Goal 5.
Goal 5 is parent engagement. I should do a shout out to Yorgo since he trusts me to do his slides for him. The annual records of parents' attendance, school site council meetings, Title I annual meetings, our ELAC committee, open house, and other site-based parent engagement events show that over 50% of our families attend at least one of those events, and we're working on doing additional community outreach to increase that number. Increased parent enrollment in our PK, our Parent University, Latino Family Literacy and Parent Institute for Quality Education. Also has 50 parents enrolled in the PK. Tracking of parents' attendance at school conferences shows continual engagement with student-led conferences. And again, the Parent Institute for Quality Education was offered at Elkhorn Village and River City High School, and had over 50 participants. So that was it was very exciting to sit in. I did up at River City High School, and it was a very well done program. And as you can see, the stakeholder engagement for our new LCAP, as well as to show the input. We had parent advisory input meetings. We had a parent advisory review LCAP draft. We had 16 community forums, as you know, by Superintendent Luna in 2016-17. We met on May 26 with both bargaining units to review and to receive input from both WTA and CSEA. The LCAP draft has been for public review on the website since June 1st. Tonight is the public hearing of the LCAP, and tonight will also be the multi-year budget public hearing. And on June 22nd, the board will consider approval of the LCAP as well as the multi-year budget. Now going into the 2017-2020 LCAP, our goals are the same. 21st century skills, educational opportunities, high quality teaching and learning, and school climate. And you'll notice that the 5th goal in the past LCAP was parent engagement. We've changed that to community engagement because as we increase our partnerships with the city, with industry, with the community at large, we wanted to make sure that we are being inclusive with our entire community.
So goal 1, right now we're going to move into, we just presented to you our annual update, what we've accomplished, and where maybe we fell short a little bit. And now, for the next few slides, we will present to you what our actions are. We're going to present big picture items because the LCAP is over 150 pages, and we would be here all night if we went through every single action item. But I know you have a copy of it and probably read it cover to cover, word for word. So goal 1, 21st century skills. Students will graduate from Washington Unified School District college and career ready with the ability to explore opportunities, solve problems effectively in an ever-changing world. Students will demonstrate essential skills in literacy, critical thinking, communication, collaboration, and citizenship. So here's just some of the actions. Standards-aligned curriculum. This is what you've just recently approved. We've spent including not only just our local control funding formula money dollars, but lottery dollars, et cetera, over $2 million adopting our new English language arts for TK through 12. And with that standards-aligned curriculum will come professional development to help teachers and staff members really understand what the new curriculum textbooks are asking of our students and how they can best support them. Our multi-tiered systems of supports. This is, I think, one of our most exciting things that we're really looking to do is how do we address the needs of the whole child, both academically and social emotionally. We just recently, last board meeting, you approved the hiring of a program specialist, Nicole Latimer, who officially doesn't start till July 1st. We've already met twice, and she's eager and excited to really look at what are we doing to address students' both social emotional needs and their academic needs. And again, just one more little plug, next Friday, June 16th, the DREAM Team, which DREAM Team stands for Developing Resources for Engagement and Taking Action to Make a Difference. So there'll be about 100 teachers and administrators that come together working alongside one of our thought partners, the International Center for Leadership and Education, to unpack the standards, the frameworks, create common units of study and assessments, using what we've already done and then evolving to make it even better for our students. Increase our classroom technology. Again, this is where our technology staff has done an amazing job really looking at the resources we currently have and how can we get more devices into the hands of our students, especially for our middle school students who sometimes are caught in the middle. Our 6-8 Study Sync new ELA adoption is really technology dependent and heavy, and so in order to access all of the resources that our students need, we're going into a one-to-one device availability for our middle school students so that they have that technology. Intervention and extended summer school programs. This is something that really, to answer your question, Trustee Pizzotti, earlier, like, why are we falling short a little bit? Why are we still in the yellow and not in the green or the blue? It's because we really need to provide the extra intervention and support that our students need, both during the day and after school and during summertime. And so we are looking at our resources currently and evaluating what's working and what's not. We have a team of teachers working over this summer. There are reading intervention specialists who are coming up with a more systematic way to provide intervention to truly meet the needs of our most struggling students. Also in the LCAP, we wrote an action to think about our summer programs, not just for intervention, but also enrichment. We want to look at how we can offer some enrichment opportunities, either for our gifted students or for in visual and performing arts, and so that's something we'll plan for in the future. Our English Learner Systematic Program, as you know, the LCAP is principally directed towards one of three subgroups, our foster youth, our low income, and our English learners. We are looking through the LCAP, one of our action items is to hire an additional English learner TOSA, a teacher on special assignment, to help support all of our schools. Currently, 3 of our schools with the highest numbers of English learners receive the Central Valley Foundation grant, and so this extra resource will be able to help our schools that do not participate in that grant get the services they need for their English learner students. Because just because they don't have a high number of concentration, as long as they have one, we have an obligation to meet their needs. Get focused, stay focused. This was the first year that it was rolled out to all 9th graders, and we are continuing to move this program forward and bring it up to our 10th graders. And special education training. This is an area where we really need to put some resources in professional development to make sure that both our general education staff and our special education staff not only have the training that they need, but the time to collaborate and to support each other to really understand what each group is doing to support the needs of their students.
And then goal 2. This goal 2 is directly came out of the strategic planning process, actually, and so we expanded on Goal 2 from the last LCAP. It is, we will create an individualized, high-quality educational experience which addresses the unique needs of the whole child while igniting a passion for learning. Students will experience a broad course of study that includes career technical education pathways, visual and performing arts, high-level mathematics, laboratory and applied sciences, and world languages. Educational pathway indicators for students. As we discussed previously, the A through G completion rate at the current time is 52%. Our goal is to get it up to around 80%. It would be nice to have it even higher, but 80% is our goal at this point. Dual immersion, we have 40 students. We'd like to increase that to 160 students. STEM, MESA, VAPA, AVID, CTE, and educational pathways for historically underserved students. We need to establish a baseline because it's incredibly important that we start measuring our successes so that we can see where we need to put our resources. So we will be creating a tool in order to create that baseline, and we want to increase participation in these each year. The actions, one of the key things that came out of the strategic planning process was our Educational Pathways Action Committee that we formed this year was for 9 through 12, but through the strategic planning process, they would like to be TK through adult ed, so we can create pathways for kids, not just CTE, but educational pathways as well. And so we have $106,000 approximately through the CTE grant and LCFF. $25,000 for LCFF for equitable access and support structures in order to support our students. Mrs. Lee mentioned this previously, but also least restrictive environment trainings. It's incredibly important. I've been meeting regularly with our new director of special services. One of the things I've asked her to do at the start of next year is to start assessing all of our kids who are on IEPs. And make sure the students who are in SDC classes, if that is the appropriate placement, because least restrictive environment is the general ed classroom. And so we want to make sure that as many of our kids as possible who can be successful with interventions in a general ed classroom is placed there. So we will start doing that by, as Amber said, training our general ed staff as well as our special ed staff. Academic enrichment, at this point, academic enrichment is what I was talking about with VAPA in order to create a very robust visual and performing arts program as well as GATE. So we're looking at different ways in order to enrich students' academics. AVID to middle schools. It already is at the middle schools, but now we have taken it to the 5th grade as well. And so we have approximately 50 of our teachers who are going to the AVID Summer Institute. And so it's exciting that we actually have our our 5th grade students who are starting with that process to create rigor for them. And we have $40,000 set aside for that. Pre-apprenticeship training construction pathway. This is done through a grant, but it's $500,000 over the next 3 years. That is what's going to be with our NCCT program to create a very robust construction program over at Bright. So we're very excited about that because I know that we've been discussing with the board how to support the construction pathway at Bright. And so we think we have found a way to do that. So we're very excited about that.
And guess what? We're on goal 3 again. So I'm back. So our goal 3 has to do with the quality and the work that happens each day amongst our staff to provide a high-quality program for our kids. So students will be college and career ready through the district's system of professional practice that incorporates strong collaboration, support, mentorship, and development and training for all educators in order for our students to be successful in our changing community and world. So in the center of this goal, that is where HR finds its place. and then that is in building systems and structures to allow for that to happen on a regular basis. So in our partnership with the Ed Services Department, with our educational partners, with WTA and CSEA, we can work closely with all of our stakeholders to put together those systems and structures that allow for that collaboration, support, mentorship, and so forth. So at the end of this year and rolling into next year, we have implemented and worked with WTA to have professional learning days in our contracts with WTA so that all of our certificated staff can have access to high-quality professional learning. Our inaugural day was June 2nd, last Friday. Our baseline, you'll remember from the earlier part of the presentation, was that we had 80% of our teachers attending at least one professional development activity last year. So I'll just share out with you that on June 2nd, we had 87% of our teachers present for a whole day. So that is a big success on the first day, and I want to thank WTA for their partnership on putting that day into place, and next year we will have 2 days built into the calendar to do more of the same. Our goal in this area is to increase the attendance to 95% on these days so that we have as many teachers as possible there. We realize, of course, there are days where people are just sick or can't be at work for the same reasons they would be out for a normal school day. But that is an attainable goal based on our regular attendance rate of teachers on any given school day. All right, in the area of professional learning, we will provide and monitor quality professional development. So the Educational Services Department has a significant budget, over $1 million, that will go to professional learning for all of our staff. $800,000 of that will be to offer an array of professional learning options and offerings to develop our certificated teaching staff. A portion will also be used to recruit, develop, and retain highly qualified, reflective, and adaptive educators. So this portion represents money that will be used and resources that will be used to provide professional learning to our classified and administrative teams. We will also continue to provide support, direct support to the classroom for teacher and students through our use of TOSAs and instructional our intervention teachers. We will continue our successful induction program for all of our first and second year teachers. We also, Human Resources has been working with Educational Services to expand this a bit and have our this area or our program specialists in this area also support the work with our coaches who are working with our PAR teachers and also interns that we might have in the district so that they're all getting the support they need to be successful. The last item is a grant that was received from the Central Valley Foundation, grant for English learners. So these 4 schools are working or receiving professional learning primarily to increase their ability to grow academic language in our students, our English language, or excuse me, our English learner students.
Before I get on, before we move on to Goal 4, I just wanted to add, last Friday was our inaugural Professional Development Day, and I want to thank Trustee Wong for attending and spinning some DJ tunes. But also, we're still disaggregating the data, but we had 246 educators that responded to the survey that was put out at the end of the day, and I will be sharing this information with WTA and all of our certificated staff and the board. But the initial results show that about 70% of our teachers on a scale of 1 to 5 rated the day as a 4 or a 5, meaning that the day was high quality and relevant to their needs. And we've received tons of positive feedback that the day was meaningful to them and met their needs. So it was really exciting, and we look to continually improve and grow in that area. Goal 4 is about school climate. Students will find joy through their educational experience and will attend schools in an environment that's conducive for learning, that are safe, healthy, nurturing, and supportive as they become independent and lifelong learners. So our actions for Goal 4 in school climate, of course, is to have safe and schools in good repair. Attendance rates, our goal is 95.4%. We'll look to continually increase that. High school graduation rate is currently at 94.3. We're going to increase it to 100% is our goal, and the action steps we'll take. Chronic absenteeism, decrease it 2% each year. Suspension rates, decrease 1.5% every year, or either maintain or decrease so that we can maintain our green status on the California dashboard. And our goal is for expulsion rates to be less than 10 per year. Those are the metrics, but really what this goal is about is really how do we create culturally responsive, social, emotional, positive behavioral supports. We are working with a program specialist for MTSS to really look identifying some universal screeners to assess our social and emotional needs of our students so that we can then put in place action plans and supports to meet their needs. Because if students don't feel safe and their social emotional needs are met, we cannot meet their academic needs. We, through the LCAP, have provided administrative support for our neediest schools. Westfield is a K-5 school and would not normally warrant having a assistant principal, but through this process to direct our funds to our neediest students, our foster youth, our low income, and our English learner students, we have added an additional support there. Also, at Yolo High School, we added additional 0.5 VP to help, again, support some of our most neediest students. Outreach specialists. This is where I'm super excited about the work that we're doing to help support our foster youth. Currently, right now, we have a 0.5, well, actually, technically, we don't have any outreach specialists for our foster youth because the employee that was in that position moved on to another field. So currently, we have slated a 0.5 outreach specialists directed to support the needs of our foster youth. We've increased that to 1.0 full-time outreach specialists to not only meet their needs, but put into place enrichment, supports, counseling, all kinds of services to help them. Tipping Point Attendance Program is a program that we currently use that helps us not only monitor and track, but encourage our students that are on that brink of going towards that chronic absenteeism. And so through our SAR process. And community engagement.
And lastly, our goal 5 is community engagement, that we will unify our community in culturally sensitive ways to engage all members in the education of our students. And we would do that by the Healthy Kids Survey. The results are pending right now for the 16-17. So we really are looking forward to those results so we can use the data to support our kids. Active parent volunteers, we currently have 320. We intend to increase that by at least 100 each year. Parent education courses, we would like to increase that at every school site in the north, the south, the central. We need our parents to be more engaged in our educational process. And communication for parents and community, we will increase each year by over 300 participants. Improved communication and partnerships, we set aside approximately $200,000 because it's very important, obviously, not only for our families' communication, but our partnerships with the city, with services within our city, and with business and industry. Parent Advisory Committee and ELAC, we've set money aside to support those committees. Parent education training, we also have money set aside for that. Homeschool Liaison, we are really focused on supporting Jerry's department in getting more homeschool liaisons to actually go out and outreach to our families. District translators, this was a huge topic in cabinet because there are, I'm sorry, it's the next one I was going to talk about. District translators, though, we have put aside approximately $130,000. Fingerprinting accessibility, that was a huge topic for us because a lot of our families don't have the resources to get fingerprinted. They don't know where to go to get fingerprinted. And so we decided to put money aside to support that, including having mobile units go out to open houses and the beginning of school to actually fingerprint our parents, because then they can volunteer at our school site and it's good for their entire tenure in our district. So if they start, in 8th grade, it's good all the way through 12th grade. So we're really trying to create accessibility for our parents to support us as volunteers.
that. That particular action item really came out of one of the community forums. You know, parents, in many of our schools, I think it's about an $80 fee, 60, 50, close. It's a fee that our current system, parents have to pay for it up front and then get reimbursed. And many of our parents said, this is a roadblock, a stumbling block for us getting into our schools. And if that's our goal as community engagement, we need to remove those barriers. So, time for questions.
First, we have a public comment, so I'd like to go to that first, and that is Don Stoffer.
Evening again. I want to talk about goal for the school's climate. I know it's great that we see suspension rates and expulsion rates going down, but those rates are meaningless if the underlying behaviors that lead to those issues are not addressed. And I think the district has a lot more work to do there, and I'm hoping to see more in the way of restorative justice being brought to Washington Unified. But I am encouraged by the money that's set aside for the emotional and other supports for our kids who have the needs. On Goal 2, educational opportunities, thank you for supporting and expanding AVID. I think it's a very good tool for helping our kids prepare for college level work. I just want to make another comment. I was rapidly scrambling around there looking for a file, and I found it from 10 years ago, and it has to do with our A through G rate. 10 years ago, in 2007, our A through G preparation rate of graduates was 12.9%. We were 89th out of 94 regional schools. And so now that we're 52%, that's the progress this district's made over the last 10 years. And so I think that's something that's really exciting. I hope we do a lot more. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for pointing that out. I'll open up to questions from board trustees. I know we all have some notes up here.
Okay,
Board
great,
Trustee
thank
O'Connell?
you. Well, thank you, Don, I was going to ask what our rate had been before, so that was great. I do have some questions. The PK?
Yes.
You had it at Riverbank, I'm sorry, at Elk Grove and at
The high
River
school.
City.
Yes.
Okay. Are you going to change that next year, or is that going to revolve, like with Riverbank, Westfield, some of those areas?
That has been yet to be determined. We'll take input from staff and cabinet and figure out where the greatest need is to direct those resources.
Norma, if I can jump in. It's been at Riverbank for a few years. I went 2 or 3 years. I did go over there, but and I don't mean to interrupt, but it said 50 participants. When I went, there was about 100. So I go back to, and I've said it many times here, is when that PK program comes, they wait till a week or two before they start putting out flyers. And it's no fault to the district. I understand it's the program that, that we've hounded. So part of the problem is getting that word out there. And if you talk in our community, nobody even knows what PK is. Nobody knows about the program. So that's just a big issue that I've talked about. But it has been at Riverbank for a few years.
Okay, thank you.
One of the things that we've talked about with our TK through 8 principals, I've used PK when I was a principal in other districts, and I think the power, and I totally agree with you, as I've worked with them for years, but the power is in using the graduates, leveraging them to get the word out. And I attended the PK graduation at Elkhorn, and the parents spoke highly of it. And so I'll be working with the new administration to take those graduates and have them be the messengers. They need to get the parents to come from their testimony.
Okay, great. Second question. You mentioned that there were 320 active parent volunteers. Is that an even distribution throughout the district, or is it mostly concentrated in certain schools?
It's a really rough data because that requires parents, we track it through sign-in sheets and attendance at school site council meetings and ELAC. So it's probably not the most accurate number because as many of you attended the open house, there was more than 320 parents that came and participated. You've attended the field day at Southport. We have a large number of parents that are active and involved. So one of our goals that we'll be looking at is how do we track better? our parent attendance. And yesterday, I spent all day with our principals, TK through 8 principals, and talking to them about how we can create systems to monitor and track all of our metrics and our goals for the LCAP. And the goals for the LCAP, once it's board approved, will be written into their evaluations and their work that they're going to be doing.
2 more questions. On the Get Focused, Stay Focused program, you said we had 90.
The 320, thank you, Gwen, is for the volunteers who have been fingerprinted.
Oh, okay, great, thank you. On the Get Focused, Stay Focused, you said we had 90% of the students attend. The other 10%, was there a reason they couldn't complete the program?
That's over my secondary colleague.
Thank you.
How do you like that look? I don't know. I would have to check in with Stan to see what
It's
the other
okay.
10%.
Oh, okay, all right. I see.
The exciting thing is we are expanding it to 10th grade, and we next year, and we're going to try to expand it to 11th grade and then to 12th grade. We're also looking at a middle school curriculum for a foundations course.
Okay, and our AP is at 58%. I was just trying to find out also, Don, would you have that information about what it was before? That's great that we're making improvement.
1 or 2 AP courses.
Okay, all right. And then just one final question. The improved communication and participation, 20,000 LCAP, what does that consist of?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
It was LCAP monies, 200,000 on the improved communication and partnership?
Part of that is your gross salary.
Yeah.
And some of that is licensing for software that goes out and then training.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you.
And constant contact, and we'll be working with we've been working with technology and our site administrators to digitalize the blue cards, the emergency cards that parents fill out, because our data systems are only as good as the data that's entered into the system. And so in order to improve communications, you have to have accurate phone numbers and emails. So in collaboration with Ed Services and the Communications Yorgos, we'll be improving that data bank so we can make sure and get the word out to more parents accurately.
Okay, thank you, that's all.
That is a little misleading since it says improved communications to have a salary included in that. So it would be nice to have a,
Yeah, if you read the whole action, you'll know that there's a person in there.
Okay.
Sort of titles, summaries of action.
okay. Thank you for clarifying.
There's also object codes that tell you like what the.
Okay, thank you. Board Trustee Wong?
No. Sorry. Thank you for that, and thank you for the foster. I know that that's been kind of my thing for the last 6 months, so I appreciate the investment. And I noticed that it's not just for foster youth, it's for homeless youth, so it's even better, right, in the LCAP, as I read, yes, in bedtime reading last night. My more broad question is, even though this is a summary, it's high level, and as we talk about equity, we should really think about the equity reports that's in the dashboard and the areas where we have not improved, right? So you mentioned we're at 4.4 for suspension rates, and I mentioned earlier in a previous board meeting for African American and Native American kids, that's actually, we've increased in suspension rates, right? In our English language learner kind of data, if you start to look, kind of drill down on those data, is that you realize that the English language learners, even though we are maintaining or improving, we have a lot to go before they even meet level 3. And I see the investment. So I appreciate the fact that you all recognize that and made the $1 million investment to improve our English language program. But again, just kind of a note to say, like, it's great to have the summary, but the truth is, if you start off with a slide that talks about equity, let's really talk about the equity data and equity reports that are in there by which it's designed. And so kind of would love to learn a little bit more about kind of our strategies about how do you close that achievement gap, that equity gap between our, from what I've seen on the data dashboard, is our Latino students, our African American, our Native American students, right, in certain areas across the board, right? And then whether or not there is a place in the MTSS investment, even though you stole Nicole Latimer from us from Southport. We love her. She is great.
She's going to impact more kids.
She's wonderful, and I'm so glad that you made that investment through LCFF and MTSS. But the impact of bias in what we do, right, and trauma-informed teaching and cultural, you talk about cultural competency and social emotional, but let's really talk about the impact of bias in our own teaching practice and how we interact with people and one another. Something that you all want to consider to actually address the equity issues that that once you drill down, you recognize that. And then I wanted to actually acknowledge that you actually did invest in restorative practice on each site. So Don, I don't know if you saw that in the LCAP, but there is some money. And again, how each school addresses that and utilizes that restorative, the money that is earmarked for restorative practices could be kind of geared towards what the cultural needs are of that school. So appreciate the fact that you've actually kind of started to kind of move in that direction. But those are kind of my general comments, and hopefully, I don't know if I can make it up to the 16th, but as we talk about data-driven decision-making or program development through MTSS or otherwise, that kind of in the back of our mind, what does equity mean as we utilize that data? I'm hoping that happens.
Absolutely.
I don't know if those are questions or more comments. But lastly, on a happy note, yes, I forgot to mention in my comments that June 2nd was wonderful. The professional development was phenomenal, and compared to the professional development that I've had in the past, which was dreary in a little dark room and whatnot. But it was such it was just so much joy on the campus and everybody running around and a lot of good positive energy. So appreciated seeing that.
I just want to thank you for your comments, and please know that everything you've mentioned is at the top priority for us. Looking at bias, looking at restorative practices. Before school starts, one of the tasks of Nicole Latimer is to work with our principals to really choose and then implement a Tier 1 positive behavior curriculum, because there is nothing consistent right now across the district, and it's not being used consistently or implemented to fidelity, so we need to put that in place.
I do have a question. Would there be a component within the professional training to address the issues that Board Member Wong has brought up?
Specifically with EL students or with equity?
Well, yes, with the equity.
Yes, all the above. I mean, part of the work of MTSS is data conversations, looking at data. And we've already started some of that work with some of our principals, looking at our suspension rates by ethnicity and starting those hard conversations.
It does say, too, on page 99, one of the goals is recruit, develop, and retain highly qualified. It says in there, include annual cultural responsive education. So maybe moving forward, it'd be nice to...
Yes.
Okay. So just as we move forward, what that looks like in action.
Yeah, I mean, I think in the terminology, culturally responsive is very different from bias, right? That impact of bias in our work. Thank you for that.
So I wanted to touch back on something that Norma hit on, was the AP passage rate at 58%. That seems alarmingly low for students that are supposed to be in an advanced placement. Can you identify any problems or barriers as to why that is so low?
Again, right now what we're doing is looking at 58% overall, and so some content areas are obviously lower and some are pretty high, and so that's kind of the average. But one of the things that Stan and I have been working on is to provide professional learning for teachers and to make sure that their curriculum is aligned to the College Board standards, because they changed about 5 years ago where teachers create these courses of study, but they need to become experts in that, writing those courses of study. So Stan and I are both aware of that, and we're looking at a lot of professional learning, including with Fuel Ed. They have AP training for teachers, for pre-AP. It also has to do with supporting kids at the lower levels to make sure that they're prepared to go into the rigor of an advanced placement class. So that kind of goes into the entire LCAP and what Amber and I have been talking about with 21st century skills, aligning to Common Core standards, is to make sure that we are rigorous at our college prep classes in order to go into AP classes.
Okay. And then on slide, well, it's on page 12, the annual update, goal 4, school climate, it says graduation rate. The California dashboard shows that all subgroups, with the exception of African American, maintained or increased graduation rates. Can you tell me why the African American subgroup didn't maintain or increase?
That's difficult to answer because I'd have to look at the individual students and see who the students are in our African-American population. So I can get back to you on more data if you'd like me to do that.
Well, I'm just wondering, it kind of hit on with what Trustee Wong was saying, that some of the suspension rates were going up for the African-American subgroup. I'm wondering, are we failing them in some way? And is there something that we need to be doing more?
I think one of the things, that is why culturally responsive instruction is in the LCAP, as well as I'm glad that Trustee Wong brought up bias, because I think there are some inherent biases that we have that is brought out in teaching methodologies, that's brought out in curriculum. And so we really need to start training our staff much more effectively on different cultures. And especially around suspension rates, that is alarming to me.
Yeah.
That when you have a certain group of kids who are being suspended at higher rates, there are definite reasons for that.
Okay. So then I have another question of how long will it take our new director to review all the the IEPs?
Well, I talked to her about 5 hours ago about that.
She's done? She's done?
Yeah, she's done. No, it's going to take some time because we need to, there are quite a few different systems in our district that have, that we need to pay more attention to. For example, our Evergreen program, Evergreen Elementary and Middle School, we have students with emotional disabilities over there, which is not necessarily the appropriate placement for that. SDC kids, we have a very high rate from my experience of being in SDC classes versus being an RSP kid. And so we are looking at that. How long will it take? It will be a full year process because we have to take each groups individually, and we really need to train our principals. And Amber's been doing a great job with our K-8 principals, as well as Susan, in training them. We're going to have more training with our principals in order for them to become much more involved in the IEP process.
Good. And then my last question is for Superintendent Reed, Assistant Superintendent Reed. Sorry, I'm sure you don't want that promotion right now. So we have this wellness program, and we're doing wellness challenges. So I'm wondering, are we offering free access or reduced access via, say, an MOU with the Parks and Rec Department to the rec center for our district staff? I mean, I'm just wondering if we're going to try and promote, a healthy living and a healthy lifestyle, wouldn't it be a good idea to try and give, staff a benefit of, having access to a gym and programs there that they do through fitness classes and nutrition classes and things like that? It's right on our campus. It would make sense that we would have the ability to do that.
So for the last couple of years, we've been working with an outside agency to push or provide us with a wellness program. We did some evaluation of that this past spring and decided that we're going to move away from that and bring it in-house and have our risk benefits manager or coordinator do that work in-house. And that idea can be added to the list of things that we look at. And I think having more control over it, we can implement strategies that are more connected with exactly what we have for resources in our community. The group we were working with was from another area, so I think there's some disconnect with what we could do with them or what they understood to be our resources here. So
Right.
definitely,
Well, I mean, it
and I'm going to
stands to
sign you
reason.
up. Are you signing?
Absolutely.
Okay. all right.
Absolutely. I mean, it just stands to
Anybody wants to
reason that we
smart
have
rules?
the facilities. We have the facilities really local, and it would be beneficial.
Sure.
No, I'm not getting up at 5 a.m. to go do
I was
boot
just
camp.
joking that if anybody wants to do a Spartan race, I'm doing one in November. Happy to have a Washington Unified team.
No, thank you.
And we had talked, just as background, this had been a conversation a few years ago on 2x2 and other pieces as well with the city, and looked at what they did for their employees and staff, and so it has been, there has been some background to that conversation too. Maybe we can revisit it at a 2x2 meeting.
absolutely.
Well, and it's my understanding that there really could not, the city employees are offered the resident discount, so the city employees aren't even getting a discount, you know, to go and use the gym or anything, because we talked about that. I'm not sure if you were
I
here.
wasn't here yet,
or not.
yeah.
But I don't want to say we've kind of beat that with a dead horse, but it's been brought up several times through 2x2, and we talked about a group of employees, you know, reducing rates, and we've talked about it a lot.
Well, I think my question is based on investment. Like, how invested are we into a wellness program? Because it basically saves us in lost days if people are healthy and fit. So if that is the case, how much are we willing to maybe subsidize a group plan, right? So if we bought a group plan to the, or negotiated a group plan to the, you know, to the rec center and Parks and Rec, you know, could we do it on a subsidized rate where we pay for a certain amount and while the employee pays for a certain amount that is at a lesser cost? So, I mean,
We've done that, and I believe they offered us the same rate, even, because some of our employees aren't West Sacramento residents, so they did offer them the resident rate. That's what really came of that. But, yeah, anything, I know Kaiser offers a great wellness program at our job, so.
And we've started working with Kaiser with our workers' comp just this in the last few months, so there's some connection there already. So let me do a little research on the history that's been here and touch on some of the things that you're bringing up, and see what we can bring forward as we develop our own wellness program that I think will better address our specific needs.
Yes, okay, let's.
I apologize. I apologize. I have quite a few questions and some just statements. But first of all, I want to thank staff, because I know putting this LCAP together is many hours, going through lots of documents, data, and I appreciate the time that's spent on this. But also on the same note, I'm a little disappointed because I've lived through a few LCAPs, and the board was more involved in a lot of these LCAPs. And I look at the stakeholder slide where you have stakeholder engagement, and board approval is where we stand. And I'm kind of disappointed because I think the board should have a little bit more role. I mean, you know, a few years back, we discussed it as a group a couple times, and I know you guys hear what we say up here and you're trying to incorporate that, but there's a lot of things that I'm not sure. Question number one, I'll throw my question out there. Are these goals in order of the district's priorities? Are they in an order, or?
They're not in any, the goals are aligned to the state priorities. So we're required by the state to have goals that align to each of the 8 state priorities, but they are not in any order of priority or need.
Okay. And also while you're up there, you can educate me, because I have gone on the dashboard and there's nothing there. So maybe I don't know, other than pushing the button that says dashboard and I see a smiley photo of my son.
So I am super excited tonight because my friend over there, Ashley, just showed me a brand new app that CDE just released. If you go to iTunes, it's called California Schools. And it shows a map, and you can click on any one of our schools and the dashboard pops up. But also, if you go to CDE, you can, in the search button, hit dashboard, and it takes you.
But I'm talking, and maybe Andy can help, because this is a high school question, I guess. I'm talking on Aries. There's an option for dashboard, and there's nothing in there.
That's a different dashboard. The California dashboard is on the CDE.
Okay, so they're not tied in.
Correct.
Okay, because there's nothing in there, and I'm like, okay, well, this works well.
That dashboard word is getting used a lot for lots of different things, but the California state dashboard is the one that reflects colors and evaluates.
And if it's only through Apple,
No, it's both.
Because not
It's
everybody
Android.
has Apple?
It's Android and Apple, but also if you go to the CDE webpage, on their front page, I want to say it's the second hyperlink down, it says California Dashboard, and you click on that link, and it takes you right there.
okay.
But I'd
I
be
was
happy.
concerned that there's nothing there. I'm like, uh-oh. So,
But any one of our staff would be happy to sit with you and walk you through it, because it's new for all of
that
us,
I
and I'm still
understand. I just
figuring it
thought
out.
maybe they were tied in.
Right, so at least the question is, I think maybe it's a technology question, is are we going to use the capacity of Aries for EWIS or anything else? I mean, at Edivate, are we going to use that, the dashboard on our student information system for anything in the future?
I guess I don't.
We have purchased Illuminate.
Illuminate, that's right. I'm sorry, Edivate.
Yes. And one of
So
the things that Kim and Melissa have been working on is some early warning indicators and a dashboard for Illuminate that will be able to quickly run those reports and actually identify before students become at risk.
That's what, sorry. Apologize.
There's a lot, Illuminate, Evate, Aries.
Something 8. Something 8. Sorry, I apologize. I just appreciate that.
And I just wanted to respond also, Trustee Cruz, that this is a draft, and this is the opportunity for us to take it back and incorporate any comments, feedback to improve.
Yeah, I think I'm going to stop by and give you my comments and
I
concerns. and
welcome
questions.
that.
While I'm not saying that all of mine are implemented, what seems to be happening here is it's very hard because we're board trustees, but yet I'm a parent.
Absolutely.
So I feel like as a parent to this community, I'm not supposed to say anything because anything I say as a parent, I'm perceived more of a board member. And so we're at a disadvantage. But as a board member for many years, we have talked about this LCAP, and I just kind of felt like you're saying it's our LCAP. I'm feeling like it's your LCAP, and I can tell you, a few of the board members have mentioned that too. They feel like we haven't been. So I'm just throwing that out there I know you listen to us probably too much, but I want it to be our LCAP. So I do have some other questions. You were talking about pushing the Common Core to our teachers, making sure they have what they need. And my only concern with that, I'm going to go back just a little bit so you understand where I'm coming from. In my day job, I went down, we were implementing a brand new computer system. I was the only one from our 2,000 employees that went down to represent my company. And a lot of the people that were at the table were administration and supervisors. And I'm going to say I was not an administrator or supervisor. I was one using the computer. So when we had these conversations, they kept saying, well, my employee says it does this. My employee says it does that. I'm sitting there going, I'm the employee and it doesn't do that. So that's where these comments are coming from. Do I sit in every teacher's chair? Do I sit in every classroom? No, I don't. But this is from talking to my community, talking to teachers, talking to administrators. So when I ask these questions, it's because I know, and I know you give me feedback. And my biggest problem I have is anytime I bring something, a problem, I hear, no, that's not how it works, this and that. Well, I'm sitting in front of it, that's how it works. So I want this to become a collaboration, and to me, this LCAP is a great time to understand that what's really happening in a classroom or in front of a teacher. And when I talk about that, we talk about the technology. Technology is great. I give kudos to our technology department. They're working hard, they're trying. But I hear too many times from students, they cannot finish their work in class because it dies. The computers, it puts them back in class because other kids' computers are working fine, they're plugging along, but some kids get stuck. Then the teachers say, well, go home and finish it. Not all our students have internet. Not all of them understand Google Chrome. Not a lot of the parents understand the Google Docs. So when we're talking about equity and we're talking about technology, it's great in the classroom, and I know we need money so we can get top of the line stuff, and I know we're doing the best we can. But I would say for the last 2 years, it becomes a problem in the classrooms with the computers are not functioning 100% of the time. And when you have an hour, hour and a half in the classroom, and some kids are zooming through that because their computer works, some are kicking them off and they spend a lot of time. It's very unfortunate. I know you're working on it, but I have to bring this stuff out because I'm sorry, not everything's peaches and cream. I'm not saying everything's negative because there's some awesome things going on, but these are problems that are continuous. And so while it's great that we're doing one-on-one and, we need to improve on that.
I appreciate those comments because the curriculum we use, both with math and ELA, is very tech-heavy, okay? And so it's very important that we have devices that work. I just met with Kim, and we are purchasing an additional 800 Chromebooks because we need to get them in the classroom. We need to get new equipment in the classroom. Kim and I have also been talking about replacement plans. How do we, plan down the road for 3 to 5 years, and how do we replace these? So I appreciate those comments because it's very real, because this is what kids need in the classroom now, is to integrate technology as a tool.
Thank you.
One of the things that we've also been exploring is identifying like a technology lead teacher on site, because the capacity of the system, to your point, if something goes down and we need to reload or fix something, a work order system is not the best and most efficient way to get it real time. So identifying someone on site that has that little bit more expertise than the average classroom teacher that can be a resource for teachers and staff.
Yeah, good. We're talking about the educational opportunities, and I apologize, I'm frowning because I don't have my glasses. I'm not frowning because I'm mad and angry, like usual, I guess. So the A through G completion rates, as some of the other board members mentioned, it is very low, and it's very disappointing. But I think to that same tune, we need to, and I didn't hear much of it tonight, is to educate our counselors. Our counselors at the high school are very important people, and I've mentioned it several times. My son is now a senior. He's met his counselor twice because he asked for it. He mentioned, if I would have known I needed my A through G, I would have taken those classes in 11th grade so he could graduate early. So those counselors play a very key point in the classes they choose, and to help them, I'm not sure if maybe they get to, my son has all this more than enough credits, but he's missing a few A through G that he'll take. But how many kids or parents actually know, hey, I have my 220 credits, I'm good to graduate? And if you don't have that support of the counselor saying, yeah, that's great, but if you want to go to college, you might want to get those other 3 A through G. So in this LCAP, I didn't hear too much about counseling, but I think we need to get them some support to help the kids also.
And I'm really glad you brought that up, because that has been one of our focus. Last Friday, June 2nd, we provided professional learning to all of our counselors for the first time, as I understand it, from some of the counselors. And what I had them do, and Stan Haliandro facilitated the counselors, also at Adult Ed and the YOLO counselor, and they looked at the California Counseling Association standards for counseling, because they really need to follow what counseling standards, because there are definite standards, and exactly what you're saying around A through G, around college and career readiness, and parent engagement, getting parents involved with it as well.
One of the action items in the LCAP is to hire a college and career readiness program specialist. This person, this staff member, would be devoted to exactly what you're talking about, because we can't wait till kids get to high school for them to have knowledge of A through G. We have to start with our parents as well. We need to start as early as kindergarten talking about what does it take to be college and career ready. So that's part of the work that this staff member will be doing, is to addressing and professional learning for teachers, staff, and parents.
And I love that, and I know back in the day, when I was in junior high, we had counselors, and, I truly wish we could afford that and fit that in, because 6th to 8th graders coming, eventually to the high school, and, you're right, kindergarten, but it'd be nice to have somebody that's really available to the 6th and 8th grade parents also, because when they come to the high school, it's a different world. But we need to give that support to the counselors, and on that same note, when we talk about bias, and I'm just going to throw it out there, and I'll keep saying it. My son is African American, and the counselor that seems to check on him the most and support him is African American, and that's not his counselor. So when we talk about bias and culture and things that are needed, those are things we need to look at.
Absolutely.
All the way through.
Absolutely.
Let's see. So going to our culinary school, I recently saw on Facebook that a group of our kids passed the state surf test. And I was wondering, if you don't have it tonight, I would like to get it though. How many students actually take that state surf safe test, and how many passed?
I will get that information for you.
Okay. Can't even read my writing now, I'm sorry. I think this, I'm probably to my last point here, because some of the other board members hit some of them. And one of them was on, one is on, and this might be more for Mike Reed. I'll give you guys a break. Thank you. I'm concerned with LCAP because I have received some questions from the public and the community about positions we're talking about through LCAP and professional development, that there may have been some positions that are flown that have not yet been approved by the board. And also job descriptions not for those positions. So when we talk about professional development, we talk about our teachers' upward mobility. I know what the answer is going to be, that it's not being done, but I've seen it myself, and I have a concern because the history of this district has been that way. They hire people, they interview people, and then they come and bring it to the board. And we had one large incident where it came to the board, and the board said, no way. So then HR had to go back and eat crow and say, sorry, the board didn't approve it. So is that happening? Do we have positions that are being flown prior to the board knowing of them? Are they in this LCAP positions that we're proposing? How is HR handling that?
So Human Resources is working closely with Ed Services and tracking the positions that are being talked about in this draft. So we're maneuvering ourselves so we can move as quickly as possible once the board approves them on the 22nd.
But when you say as quickly as possible, is that before the board even looks at these positions or approves them?
No.
Because there was a position that was flown on EdJoin that is now gone after questioned, why is this position up here and the board doesn't know about it, and now it's gone. So it does happen.
So I guess I would need more specifics to know exactly what we're talking about, but I'd be happy to talk with you and answer it, specifically around that position that you're addressing.
And I bring it here, not to put you on the spot, but I get this question a lot from my community and my public, and when we talk about it behind closed doors or we talk about it at your office, our community, my constituents, they don't think I'm doing my job. So I have to now ask so they can hear you say, okay, we're going to talk about it.
Sure.
And it's been brought to the attention that the rest of the board and the community that things may not be going as they should. And if they, if it happens, I would appreciate the district administration saying, hey, yeah, we did it, we screwed up. It happens, but I just, as part of the LCAP, any of these positions that come, I would hope that they're not being flown, that I would hope pre-decisions are not being made about employees, and it's coming up more than more, so I wanted to bring it out.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Thank you. And I think that's it. Thank you guys for listening to my questions and my thoughts. That's it.
Okay, I'm not done, though.
She's not.
All right, if I can make it through. So thank you for this. When we first were looking at the LCAP, I remember when it first came in, we were putting everything that we wanted to see, like our dreams and our vision, and this is important, and we put it all there. But then it was kind of disappointing because some of those things didn't happen because it was just too much. And so it's really nice to go through this document right now and really see it clearly. Here's our plan, here's what's happening. And so I really appreciate that we've kind of narrowed this down. We look at it more as like the compliance document. What are we doing and how are we holding ourselves accountable than we did as we first looked over this. So I think we've really grown in that, and I appreciate where we've gone and looking over this. So my questions have to do with the actual document itself versus the presentation. And so, and there's a lot of things in here that I was really excited about that felt good to say, oh, we're doing that, oh, we're doing that. There were a couple of places where that I'll bring up. So the EL ambassadors was one that I thought was a really great
Yes.
model. Yeah, very exciting. And I wondered how that could look for Playworks, because I remember Playworks coming to us. It's a classified employee professional development for on the playground. I think the first school that did it was Westmore Oaks years ago. And so my question is, because that's in the 3-year plan, is every year having Playworks. So that's something I would prefer, instead of spend money every year on Playworks, that we could have like the same thing, like an EL ambassador, maybe classified ambassadors who are paid a little bit extra to do that training versus having the outside folks come in.
So this year we spent $40,000 revamping the Playworks equipment from last year's LCAP. And this year it's all about professional learning. Everyone said, we weren't here when Playworks started. I'm a new principal. So it's all about that, and it's being run through the securities department. And with the purchase of the equipment, the outside agency is coming in to provide that professional development at no extra cost, hoping to build capacity of the APs and the classified folks to continue to build capacity with that. So Playworks is getting rebooted as we speak.
They're coming in at no cost until 2020?
As part of the contract of the 40,000, Jerry told me, that they're gonna come in, but then we did put in some money to make sure that we can have extra hours for classified folks to come in, extra hours for teachers, to pay for their time, not necessarily the consultant.
Okay, so I guess that would just be where I didn't read, as I read through this, I saw, it's the same bullet all the way through, and it says, like, provide Playworks for assistant principals and classified campus supervisors every year. And so maybe that looks a little bit different depending on need, it sounds like, but.
So this past spring, we sent 8 paraeducators to the CSEA Paraeducator Conference. And as a condition of attending, I met with them beforehand and laid out my expectations and my goals and desires. And it was really to make sure that they're kind of the scouts are going to bring back information. And so collaboratively with them and with Daniel, we have devised a plan where we're going to start with the paraeducators that went to the conference. Once a month, we're going to be hosting a classified professional learning opportunity, and then we're going to really leverage our employees. So we're going to make an all-call of, like, who has an expertise in playground safety, who has this expertise. So that would be a perfect spot of where we can use our classified to provide professional learning to other classified members.
Perfect, good, that's what I was hoping, because I saw all through this document, I see a lot of leadership opportunities for staff, and so I just want to make sure that that model is continued in there as well. Another one I saw, I think it said there will be 4 parent meetings at each site, and those can look different ways. They could be a science night or all different things, which I think is so important. One piece that I would add to that I think is important for us, because we're talking so much about positive behavior intervention support at our school sites, restorative justice. I think one of those parent meetings would be really good. Instead of, they're still going with Common Core, like, educate parents on Common Core. Well, we've been doing that, so maybe that's needed, but I think educating parents on some of those, like districts are doing Love and Logic, training, for example. So educating parents on some of those restorative justice practices, I think, are so important. I think about when I pick up my preschooler, the preschool teacher's fabulous, and she'll say, we're working with, full disclosure, my daughter loves to hug and kiss everyone. So we're working on, high five friends, and we hug parents. And so, but I need that, right? I need to talk to the expert who's with her every day and get some of those trainings. And I think that's what our parents need too, and they can just support us so well in that restorative justice if they're using the same language at home. So I'd like to have one for that. If we can, or something like that as well. And I saw in here it discusses maybe cyberbullying, and I think that's important too as we look at the technology offerings. It might not need to be at every site, but if we had a couple sites that were doing that was open to everyone, I think those are really important things for parents to take advantage of. And then I was very excited to see, and I know you've been working hard with our GATE, Gifted and Talented Identified Students, that there's a concrete plan here, because there was not. That's something that I've been talking about for a while, but the timing just wasn't right, and we had other needs first. And now I think I'm so glad we're looking at, first and foremost, how are students identified, and then how are they supported? So I really appreciated seeing that here. And the task force, when I looked at the language across the plan, it does say develop a task force. So maybe you can help me understand this, because in the next year it says like develop a task force, and the next year develop a task force, but wouldn't it just be, continue task force meetings or gate advisory meetings? That's where it gets confusing when I look through and it's the same language.
That's why it's a draft.
Okay.
We will go back and fix
Okay,
that.
good.
That
So
would be
might
called
one
an
to-
error.
Okay, yeah. And I didn't mean to call that out in any way. I just meant that might be a good place, as I look at this draft form, that might be a good one to look at for what that language
We are a
is.
work in progress with that. This
Yeah.
is, we actually properly identified our students. We just finished identification for our GATE students. And next year, our GATE Parent Advisory Committee, GATE PAC, will be working to actually put together a full plan. Because right now, it's just some input and some ideas.
Perfect, okay, good, yes. Okay, and then I'm really glad to hear that the Healthy Survey, Kids Survey is still pending, because as I was reading through this, I thought, did we get our update yet? Because 58% of students feel safe or very safe is, we want to be a lot higher than that. And so I'm hopeful for this data that we look at this year, because we've done a lot of work over the last year, that number will be higher. But I think that goes into continuing with the restorative justice or pieces like that.
Okay. Gwen just informed me that is our this year's data. We just got it.
Oh, it was, okay.
And so, so one of the things that we talked about yesterday in our TK through 8 principal meeting is sometimes in my previous experience with Healthy Kids, it's all in the message and the delivery. And when there's so many other assessments and tests and high stakes, often if we don't properly train our administrators and our teachers about how we message it, I've seen kids just click, 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 click all the way through. So it's really about really coming up with a good plan of administering, messaging. Just like we treat our SBAC test, we need to put a little bit more importance into that survey. So it's definitely something that is on our radar.
Great, and there is a component there for the teachers to take it too, I believe, right? Correct, so they can respond with how they feel in those.
That I'll have to look into.
It is optional, but I was hoping that maybe we have them do that. Okay. Okay.
All right.
All right, good, thank you. Well, okay, overall, just lots of good stuff, and it was, okay. And it was good to see, and I appreciate all of the work. My very last one, just as we look into, since this is a draft, it talks about on page, 94, hiring a construction teacher. And since we have someone, I'm just wondering, does that mean a new person, or using the grant money maybe for who we've had existing? Because it says hire a construction teacher, director, specialist, a few different pieces. And so I'm wondering if we're hiring more for the construction program, or what that looks like.
We're working with Jason, he's our construction teacher right now, and NCCT in creating a more robust program.
Yeah.
Because of the grant, we're talking about possibly bringing some of it into adult ed as well. And so we put that in there because we weren't quite sure. Some of it has to do with money, of how much Jason gets paid versus what a teacher would get paid. And so we're working through those things, but we did want to put that in LCAP just to have an option there.
Okay, good. I was just hoping it didn't mean a replacement or anything with him and the relationship we've had.
At
Hopefully
this
not.
point, no.
Okay.
In fact, we're going to be meeting in the next couple of weeks with NCCT because the MOU is up at the end of June.
Mm-hmm.
And so now that we have this $500,000 grant, we actually have something to discuss and work with over the next few years.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if we
Good.
congratulated you on that, so congratulations on getting the grant, receiving the grant.
Thank you.
We had approved application, but congratulations.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. And as I look through the very last comment that struck me, which absolutely we need to go through our, data and suspension data, can look one way and then you walk in a school and it might feel a little different, so we need to make sure that we're really supporting and digging deep into that. But when I looked at the numbers online, I did see some schools that I think Westfield was one that showed a big improvement in terms of their suspension of their Latino population was, I think, in green. And so, we have some schools that are doing things a little differently. I was just on the dashboard today, and so if it wasn't them, it was another school, but I think it was. And so that's another one, having those conversations throughout the district about what's, going well too. So thank you again for all of your hard work. I really appreciate it, and Board Trustee Cruz has
I'm
one
sorry,
more.
I have one more, and this was a big one and this is about our VAPA.
Yes.
That, this board, we put a lot of money into our VAPA, and we trust and we want this VAPA program. And what's been brought to the attention recently, and I think this goes in with the counseling, is that the choir program at the River City may not happen. And I have parents and, staff asking, what's going on with the choir? What's going on with the choir? And so that's very concerning because that's our VAPA. And as well as when we talk about counseling, it's my understanding that there was 30 people signed up for the marching band. And then when questioned, and I understand our almighty Miss Superintendent Luna got involved, and now there's 85 students. So that goes into the counseling and, the scheduling. And so when I say support our counseling, we need to keep our VAPA. We need to make sure there's, if we start teaching them in kindergarten to 8th grade and they get to high school and we're losing choir or band or anything, that's very concerning. I'm not saying we are, but
Can I ask
that's the communication in the.
Is there a place in this document where you're seeing that it looks like it's cut or lost?
No, I'm telling you, that's what the community is saying, and that's what staff has brought to my attention. So if they're thinking that, I'm here to, I'm
Right.
hoping they will confirm. I mean, Stan shook his head, that's not happening.
Right.
So we need to say right here, hey, that's not happening, because the talk, that's what these meetings are for. I can go to Stan's office and ask Stan, is the choir quitting? And he's telling me, but the other 50 people calling.
I understand. I was just trying to keep this focused around the
VAPA
LCAP. but
is
okay.
in the LCAP, and that was my concern.
That was an unfortunate rumor that started up at the high school. There's definitely choir. And
That's good.
Superintendent Luna and I met with Tony Marvelli last week to discuss concerns and ways that we can improve, not just high school visual and performing arts, but TK through 12 to make sure, like I said earlier, that it's a robust program and more kids have access.
Board Trustee Basadi,
Thank you.
Vice President.
Sorry. Just going back to something that President Kirby Gonzalez said about the GATE program. Do you know how many kids have been identified as GATE candidates since you just did an evaluation?
I do not have all the numbers in front of me, but I can get those for you.
Please.
As you know, we universally screen in third grade. So every third grader was assessed on the OLSAT, the Otis Lenning Scholastic Aptitude Test. And then 4th through 8 is teacher or parent request. So I'll give you the number of how many were actually tested and how many were qualified. And some of them are pending, because if you really use multiple measures, the OLSAT's one measurement, we're waiting to get the SBAC scores and then have some conversations with teachers as well and look at portfolios and writing samples.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I look forward to that. And I know some areas weight their score too for low socioeconomic and other, disadvantaged students too, so. Maybe we'll do.
We are not fully there yet in developing
Yes.
a criteria.
For thought.
So we're moving there. We're moving there. Right now, we're one step at a time.
We appreciate it. It's one step further than we were, so thank you. Big leap.
Absolutely.
Okay, are there any others? Okay, and no more comments, so I will close this public hearing. Thank you very much for everybody filling in. Thank you for being here, Gwen, when you were not feeling well. Thank you. Okay. So that takes us into our next public hearing, which is O2, the public hearing for Washington Unified School District budget, fiscal 2017 to 2018, Assistant Superintendent Scott Landsberger.
My presentation is way shorter than it was 2 weeks ago. 10 slides.
We'll see if our questions are shorter.
I have about 10 slides, and it should be pretty quick, because you heard some great information from Mike and, Assistant Superintendent Reed and Assistant Superintendent Parsons and Assistant Superintendent Lee on what the LCAP is doing. So what I'm going to show you is what your budget looks like, and the primary focus of the budget. We finally have gotten to this point where it used to be the budget drove program. And with the LCAP and the evolution of the LCAP, program is driving budget. So it's a really good thing as far as what we put together and what you're going to see tonight. But so there's major parts of the 17-18 budget. I just pulled out 5 or 6 of them. Of course, we're using the local control funding formula calculator. It's version 18.1A, and our budget gap for fiscal year 17-18 is 43.97%. It increases funding by 2.59% over prior year. 5th year that we've used the LCAP as a planning tool and working with the budget at the same time. The LCAP is funded $11.8 million. There is a supplemental schedule attached to the budget that shows you by goal and by action plan how much money has been budgeted for each one of those, and then it breaks that down in between base funding, supplemental concentration, Title I, II, III, or grant funding. So nice one-page document that you can look at, and you can see how the funding is flowing in through the LCAP. Your budget acknowledges the lovely STRS and PERS increase of $582,000 and $209,000 respectively just for 17-18, and then it continues to compound. You see that in your multi-year projection as well. We did not include the one-time discretionary money as we talked about 2 weeks ago because it is not going to be paid till May of 2019 according to the governor. If it gets signed as an appropriation that schools will get in the 17-18 year, then we'll make that a budget adjustment, and I'll show you about that. Funding outside of the local control funding formula, i.e. special education and a couple of other programs, gets a 1.56% cost of living adjustment. And as always, our budget does not include salary and or benefit increases in the multi-year projection. It obviously includes those that were already agreed to for the 17-18 fiscal year. So your target and your entitlement look like this. You have a $71.3 million target, $69.1 million entitlement, which means our gap in between the target and our entitlement is down to $2.2 million. This is important to understand that as they start funding, they can fund 75% next year, and you're not going to get as much funding. You only have $2.2 million left before you are fully funded, barring a COLA applied to the different funding levels for your grades, your grade spans. So if there's no COLA next year, there's only another $2.2 million until the district is fully funded. So they're getting really, really close. Spending plan increases and decreases, I did this by major object. And so overall, the unrestricted general fund revenue goes up $60,000 because there's no one-time money in the plan. So one-time money came out, no new one-time money came in. So even though the local control funding formula grew, overall revenue from for the unrestricted general fund only went up $60,000 year over year. Unrestricted general fund expenses overall grew by $1.1 million, which is actually a good number because we are expecting them to grow by almost $4 million. And we'll talk about how we accomplish that in a couple bullets here. One-time expenditures in the unrestricted general fund are $2.1 million, and that is for your textbook adoption for ELA. We had decreases in the unrestricted general fund through doing shifts, transfers, and reductions in the amount of $489,000, $410,000, and $1.3 million respectively, for a total of $2.2 million. We will line item those for you in 2 weeks and show you exactly which parts of the budget these adjustments were made to decrease the expense in the unrestricted general fund by $2.2 million. So your total general fund expenditures, because of all the moving parts and pieces, are actually down $1.5 million. That is in between both the restricted and the unrestricted general fund. So we do have some risks associated with our budget. We talked about those very briefly a couple weeks ago. The biggest risk is the impending recession that is going to happen at some point in time. We just don't know when. We have a reliance in the state on the top 1% of wage earners, and we showed you that graphic where there's this expectation that there's going to be a huge increase in capital gains tax, personal income tax, yet the stock market's chugging along, which doesn't show that people are going and cashing out those stock investments. They're continuing to invest them. So we're not sure that spike is going to happen. Prop 98, of course, we're very concerned about the suspension of Test 3B. It creates an $823 million $823 million maintenance factor by the end of this year. And the funding gap from 16-17 to 17-18, it only increased revenue at a rate of 38% compared to years before. So there's a couple of things that make us nervous about the long-term sustainability of this budget. The biggest thing being that $1 million in ongoing expenditure reductions that we need for 18-19 just to stay even. Your STRS and PERS increase in 18-19 is close to $1 million. So we're just trying to stay even by making an ongoing reduction in future years because the revenues are not coming in as fast as those expenses are rolling just because you have step and column and the increase of costs across the board. So a very quick look at your multi-year projection. Your multi-year projection is a qualified multi-year projection. It meets the criteria under AB 1200 because we can meet all of our expense obligations for the current year plus 2 years, and you still have fund balance, and you still can make your board reserve, and you have your committed amounts on the very bottom of the chart for your set aside for one-to-one devices, textbook adoption, capital investment, and deferred maintenance reserve has been allocated at the same percentages that you adopted before a couple of years ago. We'll have to start talking about how you want to reallocate those in future years because we have a couple more textbook adoptions, and then your textbook adoptions are not going to be as high of a dollar amount as they were. The ELA and the math ones were very expensive. We expect the future ones to not be as expensive. So we'll have to start adjusting these numbers and talk to you about where you want to go with that. Again, the multi-year projection, as with all multi-year projections, does not assume an increase in salary benefits, and this one also doesn't assume any increases in the LCAP plan itself. You'll note in a lot of the documentation of the LCAP, it said for year 2 we want to do this, and we think it's an estimated cost of Y, but that is dependent upon available funding. So we didn't build anything in here until we saw what you did with the current LCAP, and then we'll look at what it's going to do going forward, and then we'll have to make some adjustments either on the budget side or come back and make adjustments on the LCAP side. The entitlement going forward, and I can bring some additional data on this because there was questions about whether or not we were using the Department of Finance numbers. So for the out years for 18-19 and 19-20, we are using the DOF number of 71.53% and 73.51% as far as the funding gap number. School Services has a number that's probably about 60%. Of that. It's not as aggressive. So our current multi-year projection is using the Department of Finance numbers. It's assuming 100% of that funding is coming in the future years, and it also assumes that our ADA is flat. And it produces growth revenue of $2.6 million in 18-19 and $2 million in 19-20.
Can you explain that a little bit further in lay people's terms? Like the difference in between the conservative finance funding gap and the school services 60%, or a little bit under? I think that's what you said last time.
So we were talking last time about whether or not we need to go back to a more conservative model with the multi-year projection. This current multi-year projection does not go back to a more conservative model. This is using what the Department of Finance is stating at the time that the May revise is being published. It's 43.87% funding gap. And then that increase in funding over the next 2 years is based on what the Department of Finance is projecting. School Services projection would be lower revenues to school districts because they don't think that the ongoing economy is going to continue to churn along like the Department of Finance does. We at one point will have to make a decision based on how things play out this year and by the time next January comes about whether or not we want to continue to use the Department of Finance number, which in this case is a more aggressive number, or a School Services number, which is more conservative.
And remind me, how did it compare to the LAO forecasting?
The LAO is more towards the Department of Finance and maybe even a little bit higher.
Okay.
So again, January we use a governor's budget proposal. May we use his May revise for our final budget, and we use the Department of Finance numbers because then we're aligned with what he's doing in his budget model. Okay.
And just for clarification and transparency and budget, as this is a draft, and we know that we're in the middle of a budget negotiation live this week.
Right. Yep.
And that we will very likely have to come back and redo our budgets.
I'll address that in a couple slides. I'll show you where I think that's going to head.
Excellent.
You do have the excess reserve issue is still there because I have not seen a bill that has gone through and taken away the responsibility for a school district to pay down excess reserve once all those three triggers are hit, and we've never hit more than two. So here's what your excess reserve looks like for the 17-18 year. Your excess reserve is basically the additional 3 to 3.5% that you put into your reserve for economic uncertainty above the statutorily required 3%. Everything else is not a designation, it is or an assignment, it's committed funds. We started doing them as a designation and assignment, and audit came back and said, no, by definition, and I can bring you the 4 definitions if you like to see them, those are actually assignments. And so they've been shifted out, put into assignments, and so they're not part of that excess reserve fund calculation. You'd still end up with the same net, which is 0, because whether they're committed or assigned, they've been identified by the Board of Education through their budget adoption for particular needs or wants other than being unassigned, which means the money's just sitting there. So that's the difference between the two.
Can I ask just a silly question? Is that, so that reserve cap, it's kind of like cash on hand, right? So if how much of that would kind of support like payroll, right? If the budget didn't pass, like for some reason that the governor didn't sign, how much of that actually would sustain payroll?
Are you talking about ours or the state's?
Ours.
Ours, right now, your 6% reserve of $5 million is barely a month of payroll.
Okay, so that's good to know, just because it was a question that was raised in CSBA as we were talking about the advocacy around suspending Prop 98 and all that. So again, just to be realistic, if the budget didn't pass, it's less than 1 month's salary.
Yep.
So it's very little.
You have a new tracking tool that we're using. It's actually the full document. I couldn't get the full document onto a PowerPoint slide without being really, really small. So if you were to go into the handout that you have for this information item, I believe it's on page 33 out of 36, and you'll see the full document for this new tracking tool, which again is a single page that shows you by goal and action item, how much money has been allocated in the budget and the funding sources that are being used to fund that particular goal and action item. So you have a one-page snapshot where you get to see everything. We will then take this tool internally and we're going to have it drill down to the point we'll use that for ongoing tracking as well, and we should be able to come back to the board with interim reporting periods and say, out of that $11.8 million that was in that budget, here's how much has been spent by funding source, by goal, by action item. So what's not currently in the budget, again, as we talked about, no additional salary or benefit increases past what was already agreed to for the 17-18 year. No major purchase of fleet vehicles. There's no school buses, no MOT trucks in capital outlay at all. The only thing that you have in capital outlay right now in the unrestricted general fund is information technology. That's it. I want to say it's around an $800,000 budget. One-time funding, again, that was deferred till May. We didn't put in the budget because we wanted to hear what was going to happen with it. And any plans at the federal level that are being developed that we don't know how they're going to impact us yet, because we've heard a couple rumors out there as well. So we'll see what happens with the federal appropriation. So the next steps, which are what you were leading to, is do we have a 45-day revise? Well, that depends on what happens with the budget that is ultimately put in front of the governor by the legislature and whether or not the governor uses his blue pen and vetoes things out. If the final budget that the state approves has material difference that creates a material change to our budget, we'll bring back a 45-day revise. If not, we'll come back at first interim with any of those changes, plus the changes of the impact of unaudited actuals on your budget rolling forward. So 2 scenarios there. Major changes, we'll bring you a budget on the 22nd that is based on this, because again, if the legislature sends it on the 15th, the governor has till the 30th to sign it. And the timing of everything and the work that it takes to get those SACS files and everything together, if they don't have something signed by the governor by like tomorrow, we're not going to be able to make the changes in a week because we have to post in a legal time frame. So I would expect that if there's a significant change versus the May revise, we'll be seeing you in August with the revised budget. Any questions?
Thank you. Are there any questions? Okay. Board Vice President Posadi?
Thank you. Thank you. So I was going back to your second slide, which says, it addresses the STRS and PERS contributions and the increase. And then in the bullet below it, it says we're getting some one-time discretionary money. It's basically deferred money in May of 2019. Can that one-time money be used to pay down the STRS and PERS increases going forward?
Yes, if that's what the board chose to do with it. We would, if you wanted to put it into funding retirement liability, we could. I can bring you some information on that, because once you do that and you vest it for that, it's there. You can't take it out and do anything else with it. It wouldn't change the increase in payments that we are going to have to make. It would just put that in a savings account where that's what it's used for. You can do it that way where it goes into a specific fund, or you can do it through your fund balance and you can make an assignment or a commitment that a certain amount of money is going to be used to help offset the PERS and STRS increase at, 25 cents on a dollar, 50 cents on a dollar, whatever it is, and then we can spread that over a period of time. If I have my numbers right, the one-time money that we are expecting to get is around $1.2 million, and the way the rate of increases are going, that's going to, kick the PERS STRS can down the road 1 year.
Better than nothing, though.
It is.
Just saying that, I don't know, I think maybe investing a little bit would save us a lot of heartache, in the out years. Just a shade. I mean, if not, something. And that's if we even get the money in May 2019, which is not a guarantee. That's my comment.
I know at our last budget study, we talked about preschool and what was happening with the state with preschool and how they were adding slots. Is any of that accounted for in here, or are we seeing any of that additional money?
Yeah, it's not in the document you have tonight. We concentrated on the general fund because we need the general fund to support the LCAP. In 2 weeks, we're going to get the full budget, which will have everything outside the general fund. The narrative that was at the beginning of the budget does have a section on preschool. There was additional funding for preschool. They changed and are going back and honoring the agreement for 16-17. 15-16 that started in 16-17 and rolling forward. They talked about additional slots. I do not believe we are in the position for additional slots right now because we have not been able to fill the slots that we've had. So if we were to go and say, hey, we'd like, X% of the additional slots, we end up with vacant slots in our current system. So we have to address that system first and make sure we're filling up our slots, I think, before we'd be considered for additional slots. We will get additional money because of the COLA that was applied, and they changed some of the reimbursement rates. So there will be additional money to the program, but I don't see us as being one of those entities that gets the additional slots.
Okay, maybe a conversation as we look at a sliding scale, and maybe if there's a way, I know that's probably part of the reason we're not filling slots too.
So we actually received information from the state that our contract was reduced, our slots were reduced. So we would not be eligible to apply for any additional spots.
Okay.
Because we were not filling them.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you. That's unfortunate. Thank you. And I'm excited about the LCAP tracking tool because I think that really helps for my perspective too. As I'm looking at this, it's just really clear. I can see exactly what's happening. It's really nice to then tie back in so we don't do the LCAP in this room and then kind of, forget about some of that from us, not that staff isn't. So this is a nice way for us to check in and see it. So I'm excited about that too. And then I know that as we have everyone on board and a strong team that we're working smarter. But one of the things that we approved tonight was a math adoption for 6th grade for a pilot, and we had already approved in the last wave a math adoption, for 6th grade. And so that is an area where I know that we will not be making those types of decisions in the future. We're correcting some things, but it definitely makes you go to see that we're spending money on math curriculum when we just spent money on math curriculum and teachers' time too, that we're valuing teachers and the training and time they went through. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. But thank you very much for your presentation, and I'm excited about the tracking tool. Do you have any additional thoughts? Okay, all right, thank you. So I will close this public hearing. And that takes us to action items. P1, approval of the memorandum of understanding between the Washington Unified School District and the Washington Teachers Association, WTA, and that is Michael Reed, Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources.
All right, so this evening, we're requesting your approval of a memorandum of understanding between the Washington Unified School District and the Washington Teachers Association. As you can see in the documents that were provided, certificated staff are often asked to complete service outside of their contracted day to attend professional learning activities and perform additional services to students. Staff are compensated for these types of services, which are commonly referred to as miscellaneous hours. The rates of pay for these hours was not clearly articulated in the collective bargaining agreement from years past, leading to a great deal of confusion and sometimes frustration for our staff. Representatives from the WSD and WTA recently met to agree upon an MOU designed to help alleviate further confusion, and the agreement was provided to you in your packet.
Okay, and no slips, any questions? Okay.
Motion to approve.
Okay, motion to approve by Board Vice President Pizzotti.
Second.
And a seconded by Board Trustee Akala. All those in favor?
Aye.
I too vote aye. Thank you. And that will take us now to N11, which we had moved off of consent. So that was approval of contract services with Capital Advisors Group, LLC, for school facility consulting services. Board Trustee Wong, did you want to make a comment? No. You pulled that? Okay, so we're going to pull it to vote. So do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, Board Vice President Pizzotti made the motion. Board Trustee Cruz made the second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I too vote aye. Any no? And any opposed or abstained? Thank you. And Board Trustee Wong abstains. Okay, so now that takes us to Board Governance, Q1, and we're going to read the first read for Board Policy and Administrative Regulation Series 5000.
I have a question. No, I'm just kidding.
All right, so thank you. Dr. Parsons.
Good evening. Tonight we are doing the first read of Board Policy Administrative Regulation for 5000 series, which is for students, and I appreciate Vice President Pizzotti and Trustee Wong for meeting with the superintendent and myself and going through these policies. It's about 500 pages, but the process is we use CSBA recommendations, and so I'll take you through the different board policies that we discussed as a committee. So first, if we can go to page 11. Page 11 is the Administrative Regulation 5022 for students, and it is the recommendation of administration to go with option 1, which is district staff shall not administer or distribute to students any survey instrument that is designed for the purpose of collecting personal information for marketing or sales. This does not include, the military does not include things of that nature, colleges, et cetera. It's just we don't want to give out personal information for that purpose, for marketing.
Page 13.
You're on page 13, right?
I am on page 13. And also on that page, the second paragraph where it says requirements regarding, it was requested by 2 board members that we change requirements to restrictions. So it'd say restrictions regarding the collection of personal information for marketing or sale shall not apply to the collection, disclosure, or use of personal information.
It's not marked out on here, right? Is that correct? Am I looking at the right? I have my glasses.
It's okay. No, that is not highlighted. That was one of our notes that the 2 board members recommended.
And can I just real quick say, on page 8, there was a part where it says, for parents monitoring and regulating the television viewed by their child is one of their kind of responsibilities. But with regulating the television viewed, I hope we could maybe add television and technology or something like that. Back to page 8, because, you know,
computers-
especially as we talk about cyberbullying and everything else, I really think we should, monitoring the television versus social media and technology, I think is an important addition.
Well, you might want to even say internet because of the sites they can go on.
Right.
Yeah. And would technology encompass all of that?
Technology use, not just.
Technology use.
You just don't want to say you can't buy the Apple phone. You want to talk about the stuff they can't do
Well,
on
it
the
says
Apple phone.
monitor and regulate. So if you're monitoring, regulating the television, yeah. But technology use, I think
like
is a good,
technology,
okay. So, sorry to jump back real
No,
quick,
that's
but I think
fine.
on page 8, then we could add technology use.
I did
With television.
make a note of that.
Thank you.
I also should say that if there is something that you've gone through and seen that you would like us to discuss further, please let me know, because at this point, I'm just going over the CSBA recommendations.
Yeah.
But of course, if you see something, let me know like that.
Thank you. That's my only one.
Well, on that same page, item number 1, monitoring attendance of their child, how about monitoring and reporting? Because it's, you know, how they have to call in and say, my child's not here because he's ill. I mean, that's monitoring. That, to me, monitoring is, you know, that commercial where somebody's robbing a bank and they ask the security guard to do something. He says, I'm just the monitor. So that's, to me,
Monitor and
that's,
report attendance. All right.
that's what I thought of when I saw the word.
Is that the will of the board to
Yeah.
do monitor and report? Okay.
That's fine.
All right. Sorry, and back on track. Sorry about that.
Okay. So going back to AR 5022 on page 13, it is a recommendation that we go option 1.
Yeah.
Option 1.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is that okay? Okay. Okay, then, the next one is on page 30, page 21, I'm sorry. Page 21, it is just kind of wordsmith. We just added Director of Student and Family Services, so we know who's responsible for the wellness program.
Great.
Then page 32 is Board Policy 5111.1. And it's for district residency for students. And the administration is recommending option 1, which is in an appeal to the superintendent of a determination that district residency requirements were not met, the superintendent shall review any evidence provided by the parents, guardian, caregivers, foster parents, and educational rights holders or obtained during the district's investigation and shall make a decision within 10 school days of receipt of the parents, guardian, caregiver, foster parents, and educational right holders request for the appeal, and the superintendent's decision shall be final. We just had quite a discussion about that on why it would stop at the superintendent. And the reasoning for us is that you could have a lot of parents coming to the board trying to overturn the superintendent. And I was asked by Vice President Pizzotti to check how many actually we have turned down. None. We have accepted them all. And so this isn't really an issue of who does it. We try to fit our kids in regardless. So we haven't had that issue so far in our district.
Right, and then the reason why I asked that question is because why would the board kind of just give up some responsibility here on this if we've never really had it happen? If your rationale is you could have a lot of people coming to the board trying to overturn the superintendent's decision, my initial thought was, well, how many times has that happened? And well, the answer is never. My question is, okay, then why do we need to change it? Well, not change it, but why not go with the board's decision shall be final?
And that is up to the board, obviously, but one of the things that Jerry does, for example, he does a very thorough investigation. When you come before the board, it is not, it's in this format, so it's not really a give and take, and that could take some time to hear the parents' side, have Jerry's side, and stuff like that. So it's usually the superintendent, but whatever the
Right,
board
well,
would
I
like
mean,
to
it
do.
goes through certain levels, right? And it
Right.
goes up from, you know, the Jerry's level, you know, up to the assistant soups, and then up
Right.
to the superintendent. And then, once the superintendent makes a decision, if the parents are still unhappy with that decision, why, why isn't it okay for them to, I mean, is there, I'm not hearing a rationale as to why, other than there's a possibility that our board can be waylaid in meetings by lengthy, you know, amounts of people coming to try and get the superintendent's decision overturned.
Right.
So, I mean, that's just my question.
So to clarify, this is if a family is enrolled in a school and then we see that their residents, maybe they're outside of the city, correct?
Correct.
That's what this is.
Outside of our
But-
district.
But then that would go into the way that we have students have a waiver to come to our schools. The only way I could even see that being denied would be if the school was impacted or something like that.
Correct, and we have a spot at another school that we
Right.
offer to parents. So that's why we haven't turned down students in the past.
Again, that would be going, I don't see why you're taking out the board's decision as final. That's what my only question is. Why would we take out the board's role in the final verdict?
Page 32.
And that's just, you know, my only line of questioning in that.
Okay, I can see that reasoning. Do you have any comment?
I like option one because personally, I don't think the board, I understand the appeal rights for a parent to maybe appeal from a superintendent, but I think this is attendance, and I think the superintendent and staff are able to make that call.
And I guess it's somebody not living in our city, so it wouldn't be a constituent, correct? This is with, this
Correct.
scenario is somebody who's not in our city.
But for me, it doesn't have to do with the constituent or if they're here. I think if it's an attendance issue, I don't know why they should be able to come to the board, but because by that time, it's gone through several different levels.
Doesn't mean the outcome's gonna change. Just means that we have final say.
Okay. Are there any other comments for what options that other board trustees would like?
Vice President Pizzotti, was there a preference that you were putting forth, or are they just questions out of curiosity?
No, I mean, the option one is, I guess, fine with me. I'm just wondering what the rationale was, because when I asked my question, I said, how many times has this happened? And the answer is obviously 0. And the answer from Dr. Parsons was, you know, we didn't want to have the board, you know, waylaid by, you know, a lot of people coming forward. Well, if that's the case, then it's not an issue. So, I mean, if it's not an issue, then why not have it as an opportunity? That was my only thought.
Okay.
I also, I guess, look back at the board's role, and I kind of feel like that might be micromanaging. But that's just my opinion.
Do we have appeal process? We remember for, so we have it for other pieces. I'm trying to remember if we had it for like walking at graduation or if we took that off. I'm just trying to think of how we can, you know, make sure that we're consistent. If we have appeal processes where families can come and appeal to the board for certain things, then it would be nice to be consistent across, for me.
Having, just an experience having managed this in a larger district, is that their appeal is a process, whether or not it be we deny it or the superintendent deny it, it goes to the county office of
Board of Ed-
education. And every time I've ever gotten a challenge, that's why I stopped going, is that the county office of education always overturns the denial. Right, so on process, a lot of times districts and even us, I stopped going and just started to approve them, because that's often the practice.
President Kirby Gonzalez, you asked the question about other appeals process. We do. We have an appeals process for promotion, retention. We also have an appeals process for TK and kindergarten.
But does that come to the board, or is that
No,
the appeal
it-
process?
It's superintendent or designee, and so usually that's me.
Okay, so if we left that on, so if those are, they appeal to the superintendent or designee, is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay, so
Those are
then,
just some examples that
Okay.
frequently come up on a regular basis.
okay, so then with that said, I'm okay with option one because this, I assume it wouldn't even get to the superintendent, as we said before, a lot of steps.
For example, this year alone, I've had 5 TK appeals.
Yeah.
We've had about 6 or 7 for promotion and retention.
Okay, thank you.
I'm okay with number 1.
Yeah, but it's good. If, I mean, if we can have consensus, then it's nice to have it moving forward. So I'm okay with that. Are you having a feeling either way? Okay. Well, 3 of us have said that option 1 is okay with us. So we'll go forward, and if you have a change of heart, then we can talk about it later.
3.5.
3.5.
Thank you. The next board policy is on page 50. It's Board Policy 5112.5, Open Closed Campus. Current practice is option 2, which is closed campus. In order to keep students in a supervised, safe, and orderly environment, the governing board establishes a closed campus at all district schools. Students shall not leave the school grounds at any time during the school day without written permission of their parents, guardian, caregivers, foster parents, and educational right holders and school authorities. Students who leave school without authorization shall be classified truant and subject to disciplinary action. This is what our current practice is. There was quite a discussion at our meeting around open campus versus closed campus. I know when I was in high school in the 70s, we had an open campus.
So did we.
But things have changed quite a bit. And I can just tell you, when I was a principal of a high school, if a kid gets in a car accident when they leave campus for lunch, we are liable. And if they drink or do other things they shouldn't be doing, we are liable. And so it also allows campus aides to manage the campus better, et cetera. But then Vice President Prezzotti also brought up a senior open campus, because as principal, I experimented with having a carrot and a stick kind of a thing with our seniors, that if they had a certain GPA, if they didn't have any attendance issues, things like that, I would let some of them. But it is a logistical issue, especially when you're dealing with 2,000 kids, on how to monitor who leaves campus, who doesn't. It gets rather, it caused more issues for our campus aides than it was worth for the seniors.
And let me just put it out there. I mean, in 1986, 7, 8, and 9, when I was going to high school.
You're a youngin'.
I am a youngin'. We had open campus, and I don't think, has the liability laws changed since then in terms of the school being liable for anything that happening?
No, it's been.
President Kirby Gonzalez, if I could answer that question. There is an education code section that relieves the district of liability for things that do occur during an open campus luncheon for high school students.
There you
So
go.
you couldn't have an open campus for middle school students,
Right.
but the law is clear that you can. There is not liability directly on the district, but there does need to be a notice sent to parents that they
Right.
are waiving their right to sue the district basically for that type
Right.
of release.
Right, that's, so, the way I see this is, our high school students are growing up and are being asked to be more and more responsible as they grow up. This is a level of responsibility that we're asking them, or giving them. And I would like to see them have the ability to show us that our faith in them is appropriate. And I think the idea of a senior open campus is one that says these students are getting ready to go out into the world. They're going out into college, they're going out into careers. Let's give them a chance to impress us. And I think that's kind of where I was on this. I know it's difficult for some logistical issues, but these are 17 and 18-year-olds. And I really would like to see them have the opportunity to shows that they're responsible enough to handle these kind of decisions.
So my only question, and it's more local, and maybe, and I don't know the answer, but because we have Target right across
Yeah.
the street and there's lots of problems.
Yeah.
So we have an open campus, senior goes over there, steals something. I'm not saying, I don't know that it's happened. I know there's been fights and so forth. Would that make the district not liable because it's an open campus?
Based on what I think Marie just said, we're free of liability there.
There are no absolutes in the law. There could be a case of negligence or something such as that where the district or its agents, teachers, administrators had some knowledge that something could happen at the target, and then there could be some liability. And even with the waiver under the Ed Code, that doesn't prohibit people from pursuing suits against the district.
Sure.
But the general rule is that it is permissible under the California Education Code to allow for open campuses on the high school level.
And the same could be said if somebody cuts, like they said, hey, let's go have a fight in the parking lot at Target. They cut and they decide to go after it and somebody gets hurt. I mean, either way,
But they don't have
there's
permission
still
to be off campus.
They don't have permission, but there's still a certain amount, I think, of liability that could ensue after that. So, I mean, to me, I would rather trust in our students. I've been impressed by them every step of the way so far in my year and a half of being on the board.
And
But I don't have a teenager. I will just say, I don't have a teenager.
you haven't
So
been on that campus. I trust them.
I had an open campus too, and I remember my mom volunteered, and she would drive up and be one of the campus monitors. It was mortifying, and she
Don't
walked
use
the
the M-word.
streets.
No use monitor.
And so with another group of parents and to keep track of us, because we kind of took over the downtown and all the restaurants weren't too happy about it. I got my only, and it wasn't even going that fast, but I will just say, speeding ticket at an open campus going to lunch with friends and trying to get back to class on time. There's a lot of unforeseen things like that. And certainly I saw peers who, left and did drugs and whatnot and came back. So I would say that while on one hand, I enjoyed the freedom of an open campus, I definitely see a lot of the negatives. So the only way I would even feel comfortable going to one of these would be with community input, looking at the businesses around there, seeing what teachers think, seeing what staff thinks. But I don't feel comfortable making that decision here based on the knowledge I have, because I see a lot of negative, maybe unforeseen consequences too with that.
And my concern is partnership with some of the businesses and stuff. And the only other thing, and I don't know the policy now, if there's even one, talking about this policy, if the students are 18 years old, they don't have to get a note from mommy, right? They just check themselves out. And I don't know if that's somewhere in here or if that's a campus policy. Where if you're 18 years. I just don't know.
It's written, I think you're right, because it's written permission, so I think you go in and sign yourself out if you're 18, right? Yeah.
You definitely can sign yourself out, yes, at 18.
The only question I have when reading this was middle college. Does this impact that at all? As students are leaving and going to the campus, obviously they have permission to go to their classes, but is there any unforeseen reason that we should be concerned about having this policy across our schools, since we do have a middle college?
Open campus for
It's
that.
different. We consider the community college as part of
Our campus.
our institution.
Okay.
Thank you. And that was my exact question. The parents actually sign up, and actually they realize they grant permission to go to the campus as part of the program.
As well as the CTE.
So, as the CT of the Brighton, so those are the programs specifically we talked about with Dr. Parsons.
And, I mean, some of the things, in terms of businesses, they don't necessarily like a kids rolling in all the time. I totally understand that. But I bet you, McDonald's and Taco Bell, which are not too far down the street, would see a boom of business.
But then we're talking about health.
Wellness.
Hey, regardless, they're in our community as business people, so they see an increase in production. But as well as, Togos and Subway and so forth. But, I mean, I had this when I was in high school. I never had a problem with it. I mean, Sarah, you got a ticket. I'm sorry. But, I had this even when I was younger. And so that's why I'm kind of, stuck in here. My compromise was senior. I wanted an open campus, period. But my compromise was a senior open campus.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I had an open campus as a freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior. And I feel like I'm helicopter parenting when I say, you can't do this because you're not responsible enough. And I don't want to do that. I want them to have the opportunities to prove themselves trustworthy.
Right.
And I hear that, Vice President Pizzotti, in terms of the life skills that they developed. And I think that the question that I had was, what would eligibility look like, right? We talked about it with Dr. Parsons, is that if this is something that would be moved forward, is more of a kind of incentive-based, that you meet certain eligibility requirements. And what are those eligibility requirements that I'm not sure, right? That's something that we didn't go into, and we would assume that that's something, if the board approved a senior open campus, that we'd work with staff on what that would mean, right? So I'm not sure if that addresses some of the concerns about safety and businesses and the what may happen around, right?
I just kind of agree with Board President Kirby Gonzalez that I would like to see what the community would have to say in business partners. Just
May I suggest that for the purpose of this discussion, that we leave it with current practice of option 2, and then work out with, because we want to make sure we're positive partners with our community around the area of the high school, and that we set up a committee, or like President Kirby Gonzalez said, so we can actually see what the feedback is from our businesses, our parents.
Can I ask
It's a good idea.
Can I ask a question on that?
Absolutely.
Then, how would we know, would you come back to us and say, we've surveyed the Chamber of Commerce, or we've surveyed parents as well? Would you set up a Survey Monkey or something like that, asking some scenarios about this, and present it to us?
Yes, I would be working with Yorgos, who has all the contacts out there in the community, to set up a survey, and the chamber
And when
as
would
well.
you go about doing this?
Well, we're just talking
No,
about
I mean, I want to
tonight,
set up
so-
a timeline, because if we approve this now, I'm sure I'm going to forget about it.
Well, this is
in
a
terms-
first read.
This is a first read. so-
I understand
come
that,
back
but
when we have your first.
it's going to come back within a month or so as final read, right? So,
The next board meeting,
so
actually.
2 weeks. That's not going to be enough
You're right.
time to.
But we can
move
always go
on.
back and change the policy if we want to. no?
Yes, we can, and that's why I'm saying, can we have like some sort of, here's
So-
a reminder of, this is how we left it
So
on this one.
How about
I want to follow
I
up.
suggest a
That's all I'm saying.
process. When we adopt it, can you also come back to edification of Vice President Pizzotti, a plan that may be workable, since you mentioned Yorgos, that what might be.
Yeah,
the
and I want to be
plan?
careful directing staff at taking a lot of time if there's one board member. So I just want to make sure that we're
Right.
doing
You
this in a
might
very
as
fair
well
way.
ask right now, whether or not you guys agree.
And let me
Well,
ask
the-
you, are you
the only
looking
other-
at this change coming, like, for this coming year? Is that what you're asking? Okay.
My only other comment, you mentioned like a Survey Monkey, or I think it's more personal if you actually talk to business owners in person.
I agree.
mean, because I think
No, I was
surveys
saying,
are in
ask
person.
the chamber, go to the Chamber of Commerce and sit in a chamber meeting and talk to the chamber as to how they would feel.
Because it's the summer, it may be difficult to enact a new policy for open campus up at the high school, because it's going to take a lot of planning. I even talked to Stan about this, or his APs, as well as our SROs, because it's important to get the SROs' feedback as well.
Yeah, that would be good. So we can come back and talk to us about maybe a community check-in or what that looks like for meeting with people.
Yeah.
Okay. I need a motion to go past 10 o'clock.
Make a motion to go past 10 o'clock.
All right. Board Trustee Wong made the motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Board Trustee Akala. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye too, vote aye.
The next,
I'm sorry to move forward. Can we go back? I think we found a double negative on page 45.
Greta Grammar.
No, it's not that, because I had flagged it to make sure and clarify that there are certain, that school districts must allow immediate enrollment of foster and homeless youth without the production of immunization records. It's not saying that they don't need to be immunized, but I double-checked. That was my homework, to go back and make sure there's another section that actually says that they still get enrolled without producing the documentation, but they still need to be immunized. But then, in reading this, I realized that shall not unconditionally. So is that a double negative? It's
Under mandatory exclusions. The first
So the
sentence.
superintendent, it's a mandatory exclusion, this is, shall not unconditionally admit. I don't know, maybe, again, I'm an English language learner, so I don't know. I'm a reclassified.
The words "not unconditionally" sound like they're
Double
both
negative.
double negative, so they would cancel
Well,
out.
shall not.
So would you like not taken
Either
out?
not or unconditionally, leave one of them, but I think having both of them are.
Again, reclassified,
There's
so
probably a
they
better
may be
word to
right,
use
I'm
than
just,
unconditionally, but I think shall not unconditionally means you shall not just blanketly, you
okay,
know,
gotcha.
Yeah, that's how I'm reading it, too.
that's how I read it,
Yeah.
is you shall not blanketly
So leave?
admit any student.
Yeah, I don't think
The
it's
word
double
blanket-
negative.
The word blanketly is not in there.
The next change is on page 77. All that is putting enrollment period in the board policy, which is March 1st through June 30th. The policy next is on page 85. It's BP, Board Policy 5117, interdistrict attendance. It is the administration's recommendation that we go with option 1, which is interdistrict attendance permits. The board may enter into an agreement with any other school district for a term not to exceed 5 school years for the interdistrict attendance of students who are residents of the district. That's Education Code 46600. The agreement shall specify the terms and conditions under which interdistrict attendance shall be permitted or denied. It also may contain standards agreed to by both parties for reapplication and/or revocation of the student's permit, and that's Education Code 46600. Upon receiving a permit for transfer into the district that has been approved by the student's district or resident, or upon receiving a written request from the parents, guardian, caregivers, foster parents, and educational right holders of a district student who wishes to enroll in another district, the superintendent or designee shall review and request and may approve or deny the permit, subject to the terms and conditions of the interdistrict attendance agreement.
Does this mean that after 5 years, they just can reapply and re-ask? It doesn't mean that they can't stay in our district for more than 5 years, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Okay, then I'm good with option.
Good with
The
that?
reverse is true, that if we release them, we can release them to Davis for 5 years.
Yeah, and then we'd revisit that
Yeah.
after 5 years.
Yeah.
The next board policy is on page 89.
I don't think you
It's
should
the,
read
it's
that.
the AR that it's related to it.
I don't think, yeah, you don't need.
You don't need to read it.
We all read
You
it.
don't need to read it.
You don't want me to read it again?
And we all read these too, maybe just if anybody has something to clarify, otherwise we
Okay,
can
do you
go
want-
with the recommendation.
Oh, that would be nice.
Yeah,
Okay.
let's do that. So does anyone have any questions on the interdistrict permit? Okay. Okay, so when is?
Page,
It's also bullying, right?
Yeah.
page 94 just deals with enrollment dates again, which is July 1st through July 30th.
Fine.
Yep.
I'm sorry, going back to page 89, I'm just confused. Right smack in the middle of the page before number 2, it says CF 5131.2 bullying in the middle of interdistrict attendant permit. What is that pertaining to?
I am not seeing that.
Right after number
89.
So
1?
option 1, it's number 2.
I'm sorry, what page are you on?
89.
Oh, thank you.
The AR we told you not to read.
Yes, okay.
What does that have to do with interdistrict attendant permits and bullying like that?
It's just the reason why, one of the reasons you hear is if childcare, but I don't know why it says, it references bullying. I haven't-
If their child is being bullied, you might want to ask to go to a different school, right?
Oh,
So
yeah,
then
yeah,
you could
number
look
1 is
at
a
that.
reference to number 1.
Thank you.
It's about a permission
Correct.
for bullying.
Thank you.
President Kirby Gonzalez, 5131.2 is just a reference to the board policy about
Right.
bullying.
Right.
Thank you.
That's why it's,
So no, 101 and 102 cancel.
deleting the other
101.
the exhibit on 101.
Are we on we're on 101
Yes,
now?
page 101.
102.
Yeah, we just deleted that.
Okay.
And then
But are
board,
we in open, I had some questions about the open enroll, we are an open enrollment, we're required to, sorry, it's been a while since I read this, so I apologize. I had some questions about the, which schools were open enrollment schools, and whether or not we should still have this notification of parents. You're striking something that is attached to the requirement of having an open enrollment policy.
one of the reasons we recommend doing that is because we have our own letters. This is just an
Okay.
exhibit
All right,
of what to do.
Great. Awesome.
Okay. So in 105, is that the number of excused absences?
Yeah, we just fill in the,
Is there a staff recommendation for the number on 105?
What we are recommending for Board Policy 5121, as well as the Administrative Regulation 5121, is that we do not address it at this time. This is a larger conversation around grades and evaluation. So it is the district's recommendation to create a committee, much like Amber Lee did with homework policy, et cetera, to start looking at how we align grades and evaluation to Common Core standards, to multiple measures and things of that nature. So we would like to bring that back once a committee meets of teachers and administrators and parents and students, so we can discuss it.
Perfect, okay. So 111 is what I have next, okay.
So,
Wait, oh, I thought
So-
you guys were pulling like grades and evaluation.
so on page 111, again, we believe we should leave it as status quo right now until we have a larger discussion around grades and
Okay.
evaluations.
Okay, good. I certainly like having the value added less, because I know as a teacher how much different an 89 and an 80 is, but I wouldn't want to do that if other districts weren't, when we look at college, you know, admission and whatnot.
Right. Page 112, we made quite a few changes to include student success teams and not just the individual teacher. We wanted more input regarding promotion, acceleration, and retention. And so that's why you see the student success team, including the classroom teacher, instead of just a teacher shall identify students. We need much more input if we are recommending to hold a student back a grade.
Yeah, I love this. It does say, but no later than second trimester or second trimester as, I guess I got confused by that, as early in their school career as, I guess I'm confused by that wording. No later than second trimester? Oh, or second semester,
Yes.
sorry. Okay. So like a, okay.
And we also.
Would that be the start of second trimester? Or this, you know,
I think I'm sorry, Ms. Lee?
The intention was that it would be by the end, which would
Oh,
allow
okay.
enough time for parents to be notified and for interventions to take place. We had a few incidences this year where the first time a parent was notified of retention was in the month of May.
It's not okay.
Really?
All right.
Correct. So we are taking steps to rectify that.
Good, okay, good. And obviously, that's a very last resort, and so I'm really glad you have the SST team and everyone
Yes.
here together to help support. Okay.
And so on page 113, we are recommending option 2, which students shall be identified for retention on the basis of failure to meet minimum levels of proficiency as indicated by the results of state assessments administered pursuant to Education Code. and the following additional indicators of academic achievement: local assessments, formative interim assessments, portfolios, project-based learning activities, etc. The point is that it's not done just on grades, it's multiple measures.
I had a question about the acceleration of a student. Is what our board policy, is that current practice in other districts?
For promotion?
For acceleration, when you see that a student is achieving high success and they may need, to be challenged further, accelerating them a grade or skipping a grade. Is our policy similar to that of other school districts? Do we know?
Given that this is my 7th school district, I can say that, yes, it is very common, both from Southern and Northern California.
Okay.
This policy.
And just then to add the caveat that I'm so glad that we're looking at how we address the needs of our students that need additional challenge, because we know that acceleration is not ideal for the majority of students who need to be challenged. So thank you.
And so the administrative regulation is just aligning itself to the board policy?
So are we on 116 and 117? Any questions?
Oh,
I
I'm
don't
sorry,
know.
I was still on 113.
Oh.
Then going to 138, page 138.
Can we go back to 124, because we had some discussion about directory information and how that, we had some concerns about releasing information to certain entities because we had adopted the safe haven resolution, and we wanted to have some kind of discussion and look at of this specific board policy about how to ensure that our policy is aligned with safe haven resolution, so that we're not giving information to people who may be targeting our students.
I'm sorry, Trustee Wong, which page are you on?
124.
124.
124.
So is the section that you're specifically looking at, the custodian of records, is the employee responsible for security of student records? Is that piece right there, such as limited to authorized persons, what authorized persons means?
Legitimate request, yeah.
Okay.
So, the entire, I think the general conversation, because we had like literally 30 minutes, the entire, was, in quick discussion is of information to outside entities, that we take a close look at this to make sure that it doesn't, that it aligns well and fulfills the intent of our safe haven resolution. That we're not just quid pro quo giving out directory information that could lead to some sort of targeting of our students.
And this is actually addressed a little bit more under board policy, the next one, which is on page 138, which is the release of directory information.
Yeah, I had.
Okay. So can we give direction to, that this is revisited in the next read, that it aligns with our safe haven resolution? And then we'll look at that, okay.
So for clarification, we're talking about page 124 and making sure it's aligned to safe haven?
Yes.
And looking at 124, and maybe this is ed code language, but I'm noticing that we're not being consistent with, such as the first paragraph at the top, parents, guardian, caregivers, foster parents, educational right holders, means a natural parent or an adopted parent, legal guardian, surrogate parent, or foster parent. So when you go back down to number 2 on the is it number 2? I'm sorry. No, number 3. It cuts off, it says parents, guardians, caregiver, and students with disabilities. So I was just noticing kind of all through these, they're not consistent with the language, so I don't know.
Right.
Okay.
I mean, that's a chore in its own.
Thank you, Ashley, for trying to catch everything.
I think you actually, Trustee Wong actually brought up a point that it was inconsistent in our discussion.
Yes, you did.
Throughout the entirety of the document. So, yeah, that was something that it was found as something we need to do.
nominate board member Pizzati to do that.
Okay.
Not seconded?
So are we on 138?
So what would the board like me to do with 124 besides the align to safe haven? Is there another direction?
Well, it sounds like the language needs to be universal, but not just on that page. It sounds like we need to go back throughout and make sure that we have
All of our
consistent
policies
language.
Well,
aligned with the
and I guess then the
resolution.
question is what language do we want to put in there? Because some has less, some has more. I mean, I just want to be consistent, and I don't know if Ed Code is that way too, if they're consistent or if they're just all over the place.
extremely inconsistent.
Yeah.
Okay.
So maybe we just have to follow Ed Code language, whether it's consistent or not. I don't know.
Okay.
Inconsistent.
So we'll end it for now with the safe haven, keeping it with safe haven, and then we'll continue the conversation
Maria will check
about how
into
we
that for us.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Page 138, Board Policy 5125.1, Release of Directory Information. It is the recommendation of the administration to choose option 1 for the board consideration.
That's your recommendation? Okay.
Get there, sorry. I'm looking at two copies, one with my notes, another one.
So why would they need this versus going through the school and giving it to them? Do you know? Or?
The only thing I could think of is, you have potential colleges recruiting and looking at, student athletes or academic achievers, high achievers that may want to, visit and talk to them and recruit them to their school. I know when I was going to college, I was playing baseball. I had a couple of recruiters show up at my door. I was wondering how they got where I lived. But that information was given out by the school, so.
So it's the student's telephone number, not the parent or guardian's number?
It is what's on their record. However, the parent does have the right to opt out of this. And that's in the opening
Okay,
packet.
so, and their opt-out would be clear in like the handbook or something like that?
Absolutely.
When they come back, okay.
Absolutely.
And it's getting late, I know, my eyes are like going cross-eyed, but is there, in this option 1, does it, I see it says that the information is in accordance with the law, that the parents, they can recommend it not be released, opt out, but where is that? And when you say opt out, is that high school opt out, in the handbook that, elementary kids, everybody's getting? I think we need to make it clear where, because I was just mentioning to Board Member Wong, I don't know that I would feel comfortable somebody approaching my son talking about stuff without me present, but they have his phone number, or they have, they track him down at basketball practice or whatever and talk to him. They're still minors.
Yeah, but it's not like they're interrogating. You're presenting opportunities in these cases.
To a
from what
minor.
Yeah.
That's true. And remember, you did just recommend a board policy regarding negating any sales or marketing. So this is for a pretty specific reason, which has to do with college and career, for employers, military, and colleges and universities.
I mean, I wouldn't have been offered several scholarships if they didn't have these tools available to them way back in the day. So I would hate to limit any potential possibilities.
Well, I think we should revisit this and be a little bit more specific, because what about military people pounding children?
See, and that was one of my concerns too, Alicia, because, primarily, when the military comes and looks at kids, they look at kids from lower income, to recruit, into the military. And in times of war or potential war, that's a real concern with me.
So,
especially minority students. We have an excessive number of Latinos and African Americans that are drafted in. I shouldn't say drafted in, but
I
that are
think maybe we could
targeted.
revise it.
Okay.
I like it, but I think we should revise it.
Can I, just a thought that I'll throw out is maybe we can think about this one, let this simmer, and then we can revisit and pick up from here next board meeting. We'll go back as like a first read through the next section of this. and just delay this process, because we're still going back into closed session, and I know, I can see that we're getting a little maybe tired and, yeah.
Sleepy.
It's getting late, and I want to have the
we
best
only have
judgment
4 more to
possible as we
go.
go through.
I mean,
We only have a
Well, I
few
looked
more.
through and I saw more than 4. Okay, if you want to keep
no,
going,
there are
that's
more
fine.
than-
yeah,
There-
well,
there-
I'm sorry,
there-
maybe
there are
not
more than
4.
There are more than 4.
I was trying to count them up too, yeah.
One,
For me, there are there are more than 4.
oh.
There are several that I think are pretty quick, but I mean, it's up to the board, whatever you'd like to do.
There's that discussion about the health aid, it'll be more robust, and probably having us look at that policy with fresh eyes would probably be good.
Yeah, I think that's a good
Okay.
idea.
Okay.
The access
I
to
just
health.
think we
So
put
3
this
okay.
off for 2 meetings already, of completing this, so.
You know what I'm talking about?
Okay, well, it is one of the thickest, it is one of the biggest ones.
Yeah.
I'm good with whatever the majority wants. I mean, we can go for it, or we
I'd
can.
say go for it.
How are you feeling, Board Trustee Akala?
I have my Coke, I'm okay.
Okay, all right, well
Okay,
then,
we'll
let's
just
go.
power through.
All right.
Along the same lines of the safe haven kind of directory information, folks who are on ICE can say that they're on, at military or colleges and access that data. So we should really take a close look at to your point, what we are including in directory information. So I think for me, the struggle was, okay, on balance, a lot of our students could be qualified for scholarships. But then again, that data, like the address, could be used against them, and if it doesn't comport with kind of our safe haven resolution. So remember, I recall that's the conversation I had about how do we define directory information and what is appropriate, what's not appropriate.
And I should correct myself because I don't want the military showing up at my house, and I didn't mean to say hound, but to approach our students.
So what I'm hearing the board is there's 2 things you'd like around that policy. One is what information is included in the directory, and number 2, how do we do the opt-out? What is the advertising promotion for parents
What does
of
the
how you
language
opt out?
say in the opt-out?
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
What does the language say in the opt-out?
Yeah.
So for me, what is absolutely necessary for scholarships, right? Like the name and the academics, or, where they go to school. I mean, there's certain personal, like the address, telephone numbers, seems a little bit more personal. I was advocating, like, maybe the email is sufficient, maybe the telephone, I'm not sure, like, that's our board discussion, because we need to decide what we want to include in directory information, right? So for me, I don't have enough knowledge about at what level of information is useful for the benefit side of it until it kind of,
Yeah.
crosses over into like an invasion of privacy, so to speak.
And the prospective employers, I mean, who would those people be?
Right.
That's what I wonder too, where you couldn't go through the school or through a student applying.
Yeah.
I don't know what example that is or what that means or who those people
Yeah.
are we're giving this to.
Yeah.
Okay.
Andy, I also have one concern. A friend of mine, her son went into the military, but while he was at River City, I remember she told me she was really upset that one of the recruiters actually pulled him out of class at one time. And I said, well, have you spoken with the principal? And that was going to be, I mean, I didn't follow up on this, but she apparently did have that concern, and she went to the principal, and I think it was satisfactorily addressed. But the fact that the military would have gone in to pull a student out and felt they had that privilege to do that.
I will tell you, as a principal of high school, I had some very aggressive recruiters that I said could not come on campus anymore. So it also takes us to monitor, because our job is not to recruit for the military, for jobs, or for colleges. Ours is to make sure we have a safe environment for kids. So it's really a lot on the administration to make sure of what recruiters you have, because you do have the right to say, not on our campus. You do not get to pull kids out. Page 154. Board Policy 5127, graduation ceremonies and activities.
We had discussed this before in another board meeting, I think, as well. If you'll remember.
Yeah, I like option 1, yeah.
Yeah, I think we spoke about it before.
Yeah, we did it in something. Option 1, okay.
So that's option 1. At this point, I do need to bring up that you will notice that we currently have an AR 5127.1 that is not in here. It has to do with 8th grade academic performance, conduct, and attendance regulations around 8th grade promotion, ceremonies, and things of that nature. It is not in ed code. So CSBA does not have a board policy or an AR for an 8th grade promotion. And so discussing at the cabinet level, saying perhaps we could do it as what is our practice and not do a board policy, but I leave that up to the board on what they would like to do with that.
Yeah, and I think we had the robust discussion about it, and I had suggested, I didn't understand the need for it at that time, because CSBA doesn't have a policy and trust the current practice of staff, and I had suggested eliminating it, but that wasn't at a time where there was action, so.
I just wanted to point it out that that 8th grade promotion is not in this packet, so I just wanted to make sure that
Oh.
I called it out.
Is
that
it part of, where is it codified, or where, is it a
we
500
current-
series?
We currently have a 5,000 series AR,
Okay.
okay, for that, but we are not recommending that as in this because it's not CSBA language.
Oh, okay, so if we adopt this, it wouldn't be included?
Correct.
Okay,
Okay.
I'm okay
But it
with,
still continues to be
Yeah.
our district policy in practice.
there would be no district policy.
There would be
no
none on
district
on
policy.
promotion?
No, that's why I wanted to bring it up here.
On 8th grade.
so
Didn't you
that
work
you're
really
aware.
hard to create that? No? Didn't people work to create that,
The
or?
old board did. My understanding is that, yeah.
Okay, I thought that we just talked about promotion recently, and that there was some language around that.
We did talk
In 8th
about
grade,
that.
8th grade, we had a discussion about it.
in the student side council, they were
Yeah.
in it, involved in it.
We did, and we also brought it to leadership, and there's very differing opinions among leaders and inconsistent practices and policies, and so at this point, we're recommending the adoption of the CSBA policies, which it's not included in CSBA. However, as part of Ed Services, there's a lot of practices and instructional decisions and programming that are made that are not board policy. So it doesn't mean that there won't necessarily or could not be an educational services practice.
Okay, good. I hope there is one that's consistent, because I think it's important to be
We
consistent
have to
across
have
schools.
consistency. We do.
And maybe in future boards, you can tell us what the practice is,
Mm-hmm.
it's defined in a consistent manner.
And we started that conversation this year, and we're going to continue meeting with our leadership and our staff around 8th grade promotion, and we will bring it back to the board so you know what the practice.
Yeah, perfect, good.
Great, thank you.
And for future, since we're going to talk about this later, I just wanted to point out that Board Vice President Pizzotti did show us that there is the release of directory information on page 140, just for clarification as you think about this for the next time it comes to us. And it says the things released are name, address, telephone number, email address, date of birth, major field of study, height and weight. So there is an extensive list on
Right.
page
so,
140.
So in Ed Code,
Degrees
it
and
actually,
award
yeah,
awards.
in Ed Code, we can also define it. As Board Pizzotti knows, that recently I had to have a conversation across the river about the role of the board in defining that as it relates to
Oh.
safe haven schools.
Yeah, so I know we can define, I didn't know, I was pointing out that it was here for us to look at what we
Right.
would be
Yes, correct,
changing and looking at.
correct, yeah.
Thank you. Okay. Since I
Thank you.
hadn't-
And on page 186, we just struck out, this is under drug testing, BP 513161, and we struck out desires to in the first paragraph. It just is to support the district's drug abuse prevention efforts, the board may establish a drug testing program.
Oh, did we add marijuana? Was there just a conversation, I have a note on adding marijuana to some things? 162 about bus riding, not use tobacco products or marijuana products throughout. Add marijuana where it says tobacco.
On page 194?
I am going backwards a little bit, sorry.
Okay.
Okay.
So what page were you on?
It was the bus
160?
riding policy 160. I have I'm sorry, my notes page don't align with the, what's in our package?
So you're talking about the AR around tobacco?
Around bus, so, I have one second, let me just find,
Bus conduct.
yeah, do you recall that? That there you can't use tobacco on buses, so I just
Yeah.
wanted to add, you can't have marijuana on buses.
Oh, it's on 164, number 8. Riders shall not use tobacco products, eat or drink while riding the bus.
Oh, yeah. So I think that just,
Or
since the
vape
law,
or-
has changed, like, maybe we consistent do a kind of search and make sure that, the CSBA policies haven't necessarily caught up to law, right? And so where there's tobacco references, we should think about adding marijuana.
Okay,
Great. Is all I'm saying.
but not under 18. But yes, I agree with you. I think we should put that there. Okay,
201.
I'm just saying.
Tobacco isn't supposed to be used under 18 either, so it's the same, it's same.
What, no?
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
drink.
I know, we're getting the lyrics, it is cold. It is.
Okay, actually, we're not too far from being done here. So on page 201, it's weapons and dangerous instruments, BP 5131.7, and we're recommending option 2 on page 201.
That's fine. It's fine by me.
On page 199, the exhibit on steroids, I've never seen that in my lifetime, so I don't know if that's something that's supposed to be passed out to athletes, or if that's a notice that they give at the beginning of school, or...
As a former high school steroid user, I can say that it actually does occur.
I know, but I've never seen this given.
Back in the day, it didn't.
I'd like
we
to
didn't
follow
have
up on that, because this is a CIF requirement.
Yeah.
that,
I know.
So let me check on that and see how this is
199.
on page 199.
Good, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Following up.
206, delete the note.
Board policy on page 206, dress and grooming. We just recommended taking out that note. We just didn't think it was that necessary, but it is also kind of mundane. So just wanted to bring that to the board's attention.
While it's policy, do the individual school sites have their own policies?
Yes, they do, but it would also be helpful if they were consistent. The point of this policy is that it is normally done at the school site level and not district-wide, because of the different cultures and the different things that are happening in school. But again, it could be much like the 8th grade promotion is to create consistency with our sites on what the appropriate practices should be.
Yeah, I think that's the problem, because if it's on our district website right now, as this is our practice, but then it might be different at different places, we just need to make sure that our language on the website, our language on school sites, it can't say one thing and then we say, well, school sites can act differently, you know, that we
Absolutely.
just need to have
We had
consistency.
a big
And
story last year, wasn't it, on the news? Yeah.
Yeah, you're right, we did, and I don't know how I feel either way. I mean, that would be an important policy to me to maybe revisit with our SROs as well down the road.
Right, absolutely. The next board policy is on page 254. It's availability of condoms on board policy 5141.25, and it's our recommendation.
Before we get there, the AR 5132, page 208, hats, caps, and other head covering shall not be worn indoors. I'd like to add the fact that religious head covering should be exempted
right.
from that board policy, so not a prohibition against.
Okay.
Oh, absolutely.
That's
Thank
right.
you.
Okay,
We talked about that.
we did talk about that, so
That
that's
is
something.
offensive that they would even not catch that to me, that CSBA would even put that in like
I'm
that.
telling you, and as I've talked to people, CSBA isn't necessarily always
Not
updated on
always,
the
yeah.
most recent, so.
Okay.
Although, it's-
So we're going to
That's-
strike
that's-
that?
We're gonna
No,
add-
we have to-
we're
the
adding-
head
adding
covering.
Right.
religious head covering.
It's a good catch, thank you.
yeah.
So board policy 254, we are recommending on page 254 to go with option 1.
So my question on this one is, do we have a licensed healthcare provider at the high school campus at all times?
No, we do have a licensed nurse in our district that covers, we have health aides.
Okay, so my question would be, if there is a student that wants to get condoms at the high school campus, they have to wait for whenever the nurse or healthcare provider or healthcare professional is there? I'm trying to think out.
I totally, I understand what you're saying, and I'm trying to, Yes, if there is a medical, if there's a need for that, I think that.
I'm not saying need, I'm trying
but
to
see-
make sure our guys and girls are being safe.
No,
you know?
I totally understand what you're saying, and so I'm trying to think of how to phrase this. Yes, they have access to a school nurse if they need one.
At all times, like at any day of the week.
What-
No, that's my understanding.
Well, so could the language say something like, in the health office at all times? At all times at the health office, this is available. And then it could be an aide or whoever's there. Like, can we legally change that? So that it could be a health aide versus the, okay, perfect. Because I think I understand your point, and if it's just available in the health office and the person in the health office has been given the permission, I think that's, makes a lot more
Yeah,
sense.
'cause I mean, my concern is that not everybody has, not everybody is, availing themselves to birth control or, safe sex, which we know happens. So, students may be, engaging in risky practices, and we'd rather have that not happen. And if it's an easy ability for them to get condoms, then I would much rather have them.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm saying. They could go
Yeah.
to the health office at any time. We can look at legally if we can.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, and just I'm assuming this is current practice, if it's current practice because folks want somebody to talk to a professional about what risky practice is and kind of going through their options. I mean, kind of educating them a little bit more about reproductive health. I'm just wondering if that's, because this is current practice, right? Option one.
Correct.
And so the reason behind current practice that it's a health professional is why?
So.
Just, I'm curious.
Can't we just add the word "or designee" like we have through everything else? Only licensed healthcare professionals or designee authorized by the superintendent.
Yeah,
Well, it already says that, it says superintendent or designee.
So,
Well, it says that they're authorized by the superintendent or designee, but it says only licensed healthcare professionals. So if we
Professionals,
add only licensed healthcare professionals, or if we just take out only licensed healthcare professionals or designee.
Authorized by the superintendent.
So, Andy, let me ask you
I don't
this
think I got
question.
an answer to my
Say I'm a
question, but-
student, and the licensed healthcare professional is not there currently, and I want to go get a condom today. Not today, because school's out, but I go and I want to get a condom. The healthcare professional is not there, can I get that condom?
Currently, no.
Okay, that's my point, yes, I get your point, yeah.
President Kirby Gonzalez, I went to the actual model policy with the link to the law, and it, basically what it says here is that pursuant to the Education Code, only a licensed physician or nurse are qualified to give medical care or treatment at a school. And so the question really is, and I don't think it's been answered by any courts, whether the distribution of condoms then would be, because of the reason we do it is to either prevent sexually transmitted diseases or pregnancy, which are both have medical components to them, whether then the passing out of the condoms falls within that requirement under the Education Code. So you have two options in that particular policy, and the other policy, although the other option 2, says condoms shall be available to individual high school students at locations designated by the superintendent or designee, and related information shall be provided at the same locations, and a licensed healthcare professional shall be available to counsel students. So I think both of these options contemplate having someone, because we are an educational institution, who can help educate students in this area.
But here, you're right, option 2, they're available, they're not,
It doesn't
they
say-
don't have to be there.
Right.
Okay, so I think based on our conversations, option 2 is what makes more sense.
Correct. I mean,
Yeah.
thank you for answering my
Yes.
question. So, yes.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it should be available, and it shouldn't be only when the nurse is there. That's my,
So then that might go.
yeah, so option 2 would be, yeah, it would be falling under your jurisdiction to be a designee.
Thank you very much. I
You're welcome,
appreciate
sir.
that.
You're welcome.
So I understand the board's wishes is to do option 2, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Assuming the location would be like the health, a logical location.
Right.
As long as there's a healthcare
affords-
professional available, whatever that means, whatever that means to you in terms of implementation.
Okay,
If somebody needs somebody.
And as long as we can provide them a pamphlet or something.
I will.
Whatever
There you
it
go.
means for you, I trust you in implementation of that.
Okay, thank you. Page 291, we just added the word Child Protective Services on 291 because we needed to say where folks can contact CPS.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
Okay, we're on Administrative Regulation, page 332, Insurance, AR 5143. We are recommending option 3, and then on that same page, we inserted the phone number of a low-cost sponsored health insurance program.
Okay. Any question? Otherwise, option 3, okay. Good.
On page 343, suspension and expulsion due process, Board Policy 5144.1. Administration is recommending option 1. No students in grades K through 3 may be suspended for disruption or willful defiance except by a teacher pursuant to Ed Code 48910.
And so this is the K charge, right? And so my preference is that a teacher can still, sounds like they can still
Yes, they can.
suspend in either case. So, but wondering whether or not my preference is option 2, to make that available to all grade levels. Again, acknowledging that the exception it still allows a teacher to, right, a teacher to suspend pursuant to Ed Code 48910.
Marie, do you have any comments on that, option 1 or option 2?
Option 1 is current law. Option 2 is us expanding beyond the law. Correct. Sorry.
So my question would be, looking at option 2, if there's a issue on the playground with a student, and we certainly, this is of course last result because, we definitely want to make sure that we're helping students before it ever gets to this. But if a student's on the playground and there's a confrontation happening with a yard supervisor, I worry that they're already, I hear campus aides say to me sometimes they don't feel respected by students, and I worry that this might take, if I'm reading this correct, would this take power away from them? So if student is being, possibly would fall under willful defiance to folks who are not classroom teachers, does that mean that they cannot be suspended, would be my question.
The question, the interaction would be, what would you suspend the child for under 48900, right? Could you, in that incident, if they were truly, I mean, this is about saying no or being defiant or saying no, right? So from a PBIS and MTSS trying to support school climate is why would a K charge from research is pretty subjective, right? And then kind of the implicit bias, all of that plays into it. So specifically the K charge. You can suspend for everything else under there. If it's assault, there's a bunch of other things you can suspend for. Again, keeping kids from instruction, right? That's what suspension is, keeping kids from instruction. So if it happens on the playground, it's not necessarily about power for me, it's about if we are trying to support positive school climate and we are trying to address our suspension issues that may be grounded in some sort of bias, why don't we just, and we're already doing it for K3 per law, why wouldn't we expand that K12?
Yeah. I testified before a Senate hearing on reclassification for EL students. And at this hearing, there was, people were also speaking on this issue, and CTA, and several students testified and gave some very, very compelling testimony. Especially there was a group of African-American students that testified in support of this. So just wanted to.
In support of
expanding it to through 12th grade.
Yes.
Okay.
K-12.
So I just wanted to share that information with you.
I guess I just wonder why it's a teacher versus the site administrator versus, I guess that's where I'm looking at that saying,
Teacher, well, administrators are usually the ones who actually suspend, right? Classified staff they don't suspend. It's actually an administrator or certificated, right? So the teachers still have the right to suspend under K, under this language and under current law.
So-
It is more whether or not an administrator could actually suspend a young person for a K charge, a student for a K charge.
So could a campus supervisor refer them to the office for?
For anything, yeah.
Right, and then suspension could be recommended, right? It would be up to the AP.
But not
It'd be-
for, not for disruption or willful defiance. I'm just making sure I understand this, and I certainly understand how, typically suspensions work with administrators and all that. It just doesn't say that in this language. That's just where I'm trying to figure that out.
President Kirby-Gonzalez, what this, I think, is trying to do, and what the law did when it changed the rules with regards to suspending small children for willful defiance, is it's trying to balance out the educational rights of the student with the need of a classroom teacher to be able to teach the other 28 or 32 children in the classroom. And so this 48910 is very specific to the right of a classroom teacher to suspend a student. And so that would be the person who has the ability to suspend that student for that day, rather than, say, a campus security monitor or an administrator.
And with this type of charge, I don't like to take away, educators' power, but if we went with option 2 for this type, looking at this, it might be important to also have, we just need to make sure we're following the same matrix, right? I don't want one person over here to say this is willful defiance and one person over here to say something different. And so it just seems a little subjective with the way it was worded. And so I just want to make sure that.
No, and you're kind of hitting on the point then why there's a movement for the change legislatively and statewide that willful defiance is very subjective. The K charge is extremely subjective. And I'm not saying it's happening in Washington per se, but statewide studies have indicated that there is inherent bias in it.
Yeah. And I see too, my understanding was one reason why it was K3 was because developmentally appropriate, students and if they have the same understanding.
Okay, I'll leave it at that.
Versus as kids are older and they have maybe some different developmental understandings, and so.
Personally, having been part of those conversations, I think that that's the reason, but I think it's more political in nature, why it landed on K3. And that's why there's a movement by students of color and parents, statewide to change it.
So my understanding, the board would like to do option 2.
Option 2.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
The next one is just electing Assistant Superintendent Reed to take care of non-discrimination and harassment.
What page are you
On page 396, I'm sorry.
I can hear you.
396.
Thank you.
As I'm moving to 396, maybe just something to consider, if we have option 2, can we just add in line with discipline matrix or some type of language there, since it only right now says, I just wonder if there might be just something for us to think about as we move on, so there's a little bit of consistency. Okay.
396.
Pages, exhibit for 409, which has to do with parental notifications.
Wait, it's got to be 396.
On page 409 through page 4, it's a long one.
We're deleting that?
Yeah, 424, it is our recommendation to delete the exhibit, but to keep it for reference. It is actually a great list of ed codes and when we should be notifying parents for different things. So I think that we don't think it's necessary to be in board policy per se, but we keep it for reference so we can educate our district and site level staff.
Okay.
Got it.
And on page 429, again, I'm just electing Assistant Superintendent Reed to take care of sexual harassment complaints.
That boy.
Okay.
Have we passed board policy 5145.11?
I'm sorry, which one?
Have we passed board policy 5145.11?
Yes, since we're on the last one. Which page are you on?
Again, I'm looking at I believe it's 3, it has to do with questioning and apprehension by law enforcement. So through something, again, it's just a note about making sure that it aligns with
It
Safe
aligns
Haven.
with the Safe Haven. right?
Yeah. So that,
And I
again, just
apologize, which page?
380.
380?
Again, the same note that we had in previous discussions, making sure that this board policy aligns with our Safe Haven and it fulfills our intent of our Safe Haven resolution
Okay,
about
I'll-
questioning students.
Okay, I'll put that note
380,
down. Last board policy for tonight is Board Policy 5148, before and after school programs. We are recommending option 2.
What page is that?
I apologize, 464.
Fee. After-school program fees. Right.
But aren't our after-school programs outside of the district? I mean, do we run an after-school, is this an intervention, I guess, that's run by the district? I'm confused at what it's talking about with this, because as of right now, all of our students are charged a fee based on, like the YMCA, right? They have their fees all set.
So a contract vendor, you mean?
Yeah. No, okay.
Is there any school that we provide after-school care for?
Amber, do you have anything at the elementary schools?
Looks like he's talking about.
It's our city.
Are you referring to Kids Zone?
That's,
Or is
yeah,
that the city?
that's the city.
We have an agreement between the city and us. It's run through our ACES grant. So it's under PACE department, Gwen's department, and Rahale Adabaki is the program specialist who currently oversees Kids Zone and provides the coordination. And that is, I believe, 3 hours of daycare.
So we have a fee, do we currently have the fee waived or subsidized for program? I guess they do have a sliding scale, like the YMCA or the other programs. Is that currently happening then? The fee is waived and they don't have to pay a fee?
Not to my knowledge.
Yeah.
I guess my
So
bigger
this is
question would be,
permissive.
why would
I'd just like to
we?
look
says
more at
when
this.
available.
All of our facilities,
It just says when available.
in lieu of YMCA or third parties.
So that's, I think, wishful thinking, if we ever get one when available.
ACES is income-based, and currently the grant would not support all facilities.
Yeah. I feel like there's just a whole lot of different programs that we have, and so it feels weird to have this language based on that there's many different programs and not all of them maybe do this.
No,
See what I'm saying?
I think the key is the word may.
Okay.
That we have programs and we may charge.
Doesn't mean we're going to.
But it's not always the cost of services because there's like Firefly Art and they're not a nonprofit. They are for-profit. And Mad Science is for-profit. And those are after-school programs. like
Yes,
clubs
especially
and-
Southport has quite a
Yeah,
few after-school programs that parents are charged.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say, like, that's how, I'm trying to remember how we run it. We actually write a check to Southport. It goes into the Southport bank account for the
Because
fee. And then we
PTO
pay
at Southport is the
Yeah.
one that coordinates a lot of those programs.
So the difference would be that that's a PTO, so it's fun. That wouldn't be in violation of this policy.
it. If we do may,
Okay.
if we
That's
may.
my understanding.
So option 1 would not allow
Okay.
us to do that. Option 2 would allow Southport to continue
Well, and I
doing
don't
what
wanna
it's
tie
doing.
our
Okay,
hands to
all
say
right,
no.
sorry. Thank you for that
Okay.
clarification. All right, got it. Okay, we did it. All right, we have future agenda items. We're going to go back into closed session, but before we do, future agenda items.
Yeah,
Um,
I was going to add something for board governance.
Oh,
The Governance and Policy Committee would like to discuss how to agendize items. So we'd like to bring that to the board for discussion.
great. So let's do future board, let's put that on as future board agenda item then. Okay, so we'll revisit the Governance and Policy Subcommittee. I'm going to put this one on too, so I'll get it. 'cause I was going to. Okay.
My bad.
Perfect, and, okay, so with that, we will go back into closed session for For E2, Government Code Section 54957.6, Conference with Labor Negotiators, WTA, CSEA, and that will be with Michael Reed.